Mic check.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Roll call on open meeting law compliance commission.
President Carl Fortner.
Present.
Trustee Commissioner Jim Solani.
Present.
Commissioner Dan Nowak. Trustee Commissioner Fred Mahalik.
Present.
Commissioner Jamie Schliessman.
Present.
And we have our zoning and planning administrator, Sean Malarkey, here. Mr. President, note for the record, you do have a quorum of your plan commission. And also, Mr. President, the agenda was posted inside and outside the Vernon Town Hall to the media, to businesses within the town of Vernon. You are in full compliance with the open meetings law.
Thank you. We'll get right down to business here. On the agenda, 4A is the site plan of operation, final survey, certified survey map, multiple buildings on a lot, per section, ordinance 300-7 for Ken Walters for the property located on National Avenue, tax key 2017996-001 for a hot air balloon business, office and storage and RV storage. Mr. Walters is coming up, that's good. Mike's on. If you would, just for the record, state your name and address, and if you do that, we'll have Sean kick it off.
Good evening. My name is Scott Meyer with Ayers Associates. Address is W284 N4964 Roosevelt Way, Pewaukee.
Okay, Sean, could you kick us off and take us through what is being proposed and what is being asked for, and point out issues along the way for us.
Sure, thank you. So they're requesting a certified survey map to create three lots on a new public road, which would be a cul-de-sac off of National Avenue. And then also are requesting approval for site plan of operation for the initial development phase of the project, which will include two businesses basically on the one lot, lot one, which would be a hot air balloon business, Wind Dancer Balloon Promotions, which is limited to office and storage space, and then an RV storage business, which would be Lone Silo RV Storage, to the rear, to the south of the hot air balloon business. Hot air balloon launches will not take place on site, and in fact, I pointed out in my staff report, outdoor recreational uses were at one point a conditional use in the B3 zoning district, which this is zone B3, but were removed in the last update because they didn't have adequate conditional use requirements. And so as of now, the property cannot be used for balloon launches in either case. The outlot that's shown on the CSM would be used for stormwater management, and then lots 2 and 3 will be reserved for future development at some point in time. The new Wind Dancer building is intended to generally replace the barn that previously existed on the property. And you'll notice in the architectural drawings that the architecture for the hot air balloon office as well as the storage buildings in the rear are modeled after sort of a rural farm barn feel. And so we can get to that in a bit. The silo that's in the property is going to remain. That was the remnant of the previous farm. And then the site plans that were submitted do show potential future mini storage buildings. They're sort of dotted in. On lot 1, that would be a future development phase. Those would require site plan of operation approvals at some point in the future. So what's being requested tonight is just the site plan, the certified survey map to create the 3 lots, the new road that will go in, and then just the site plan of operation approval for the Wind Dancer hot air balloon business and the 2 RV storage buildings for the initial phase. I mentioned it was zone B3. This was previously rezoned by the village. It was done in October of last year. The rezoning was conditioned on the approval of the site plan of operation, consistent with the concept that was presented at the time. The operation as proposed is consistent with B3 zoning in every way, except for one, which is going to be remedied here tonight. The certified survey map shows a roadway dedication of 33 feet to the center line, and the county is requiring a 50-foot dedication for that. That's part of their plans, and so the building from the plans that you've seen is going to need to be moved back 17 feet to be out of the setback. And so I believe the petitioner has updated plans, which we're going to go through tonight to address that. So that's the only thing that isn't currently consistent with the zoning. My only comment on the certified survey map itself is that there was a couple references to town, which should be updated to village, and then the chairman updated to the president for the village board approval section. The plan of operation that's proposed, there's basically two, the way I have it laid out on my staff report for wind, they'd be broken down for the wind dancer balloon promotion business and then the lone silo RV storage. So the uses and activities for the wind dancer are going to be limited to a hot air balloon business that includes office space and shop space for storage and maintenance repair of equipment. Hot air balloon launches are not permitted on site. The number of employees would be up to 4 total employees, which would be shared with the Lone Silo RV storage. In terms of company vehicles, there'd be 3 15-passenger vans, which would be stored indoors when not in use. And the hours of operation would be 5 a.m. to 8 p.m., 7 days a week. But employees may be on site prior to these hours preparing for flights or maybe after hours following a flight. And then the RV storage business plan of operation would be a mini storage unit business for recreational vehicles, including 25 units for lease in 2 different buildings. The leasing office would be located in the Wind Dancer building. Up to 4 employees. Those employees are shared with the Wind Dancer balloon promotions with the same hours of operation as the Wind Dancer balloon promotion business. I've mentioned the architecture before. The idea was to create a rural look for all the buildings on the site. It's basically it's vertical metal siding, metal roof. It's got some wainscoting. The wainscoting is gray. The rest of the building is red. It's got decorative cupolas on the top. The only thing I want to point out about the architecture is that in our Chapter 144 ordinance for commercial buildings and industrial buildings, it does suggest that metal siding be limited to 33% of exterior walls, though this is just a guideline. And so that's something that the Plan Commission should determine if it's appropriate in your review. And then the only other suggestion I had was for the north elevation of the Wind Dancer office storage building that faces National Avenue. In my opinion, that's probably the least detailed elevation on that building, and it faces National. There might be a little more done. I suggested maybe even just a shed roof added above the entrance doorway that faces National, something just to give it a little bit more detail. However, now that the building is got to be pushed back 17 feet from the right-of-way, I don't know if there's room to do that any longer. So that's something that'll have to be discussed. I was also told by the petitioner that the elevations, the architectural elevations that were submitted are fairly conceptual and they're not yet finalized. And so if you would choose to approve the site plan of operation tonight, you'd be approving conceptual drawings with details that could be worked out between me and the petitioner if you chose to do so. In terms of parking, our ordinance for professional office space only requires 1 space per 200 square feet. There's only 600 square feet of office area in the Wind Dancer building. That's 3 spaces. They've provided 6, including an ADA accessible space, and there will be 4 employees on site at any one time. So my only question with regard to parking is the fact that the petitioner has stated that passengers of the hot air balloon may sometimes meet out at this site prior to rides, and so I'm not sure how many cars would be parked there at any particular time. There are only 6 parking spaces, up to 4 employees, and so that's something that does need to be hashed out and discussed, in my opinion. In terms of the mini storage, there's no parking required for those. Anyone that would use them would park directly in front of the unit. itself. Landscaping, they did provide a full landscaping plan. We don't have any specific landscaping requirements in our ordinance in terms of number of trees or shrubs, et cetera, though we do require that loading docks be screened from public view. And so there's not necessarily a loading dock associated with the building, but there is an overhead door on the south side of the wind dancer balloon business, and so that's where things would get loaded into the building. And so they have provided landscaping basically in two locations on the site. One is the perimeter of the west side, the north side, and a portion of the east side of the wind dancer building, the hot air balloon building, which is essentially shrubs and a couple of trees. And then they provided shrubs along the west property line, west of the northernmost RV storage building with some mulching. And my comment is basically, I think those shrubs are going to provide some buffering from the property to the west. That's a residence that's to the west of the proposed business. There, the driveway for that residence runs basically along the lot line, just to the west of the lot for the subject property, and so there isn't any buffer there. It's the driveway is just adjacent to the lot line, and so you will see the business as you come into that residence. And so I'm suggesting that there might be some more landscaping that's immediately west of the parking loading area as a screen to that parking and loading area from the residence. And I've also made the comment in my staff report that it may make more sense, instead of the shrubs that are planted along the property line, separating the residence from the business, that those might be evergreen trees or something similar to that. Again, that's something the Plan Commission can discuss with the petitioner. They've also provided a lighting plan which shows 0-foot candles at the property line, which meets all ordinances. I mentioned before about the dedication of the roadway. That's going to be 50-foot required. They're going to need to update their certified survey map, and then all the site plans that'll be shown tonight, I believe, does incorporate that 50 feet. So if the certified survey map was to be approved tonight, those changes would be forthcoming at a later date. They are working with Waukesha County on stormwater management. They've received preliminary comments from Waukesha County. There's a few minor comments in my report. The gist of them is there's some notes that have to be added to the certified survey map. They need to provide an easement for the drainage basements, and also an easement to be able to get to them for access purposes as well. So they are working on updating those. Finally, there'd be a letter of credit required for the roadway, improvements in the roadway for the new cul-de-sac. The engineer took a look at this, has a few minor comments, nothing that's worth discussing tonight. He looked at the grading, said the grading plan looked good, so doesn't have any concerns major concerns with the engineering for that. Again, just a few minor comments on the bottom of page 4 and top of page 5 of the staff report. Our surveyor did have a number of comments, which encompasses most of page 5 and 6 of the staff report. However, they're all very technical in nature, and those can be cleaned up without a lot of issue. Nothing substantive which would change the overall nature of the certified survey map. So I'm not going to get into the recommendations and the conditions, but that's the overview for the certified survey map and the site plan of operation request.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President, members of the commission, Sean, for your very thorough introduction there. The first item I just want to address, just so everybody's on the same page, and I have a full-size print and some smaller ones that I can share on the site plan.
Thanks.
Thank you. So Sean, this is updated.
To meet the 50-foot setback, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, during our normal course of review with the county, it became, they let us know that there was a different requirement for the right-of-way dedication in the title work that we used to prepare the CSM and the site plan initially. In the title, discussed a 30-foot right-of-way dedicate, a 33-foot right-of-way dedication, but during the county review, they noticed that it needed to be a 50-foot, so that additional 17-foot of right-of-way dedication needed to be dedicated via the CSM. And so that adjusted the site plan a little bit. And so what I just handed out are two site plans. The top one is the original site plan that you've already seen. And the second page is the revision where the building has been pulled back 17 feet from the right-of-way. And as you can see, from a site plan perspective, there was very little change that was needed. So we just wanted to let you know that even though we're hoping that you approve the site plan, that we aren't going to be changing things significantly, and that's what we've been working on over the last week, is making sure there's no landmines that were created with the site plan that we'd have to change after your approval. So the site plan that you see tonight shouldn't be changing much. Just a few technical details that we're working through with Sean and his team and the county on technical detail type work that are typical. Hopefully you feel comfortable approving the site plan with the condition that we'll make those necessary adjustments to get the technical engineering done and update the CSM to reflect the correct right-of-way.
Could you speak to the architecture? Is that still being addressed or worked on as well?
Yes, so the architecture that's in your package, that was a preliminary. As part of these buildings, there's several different options that you can go through for constructing the buildings. There's the traditional design, and then go out to contractors and then build them, or you can go to manufacturers that build these, and you can do contracts with them, and after you sign a contract, they'll give you full design plans that you approve before construction. And that's what we're working through right now. Mike Dufek with Dufek Construction is here. If you wanted to talk a little bit about kind of the process.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for your time. Mike Dufek with Dufek Construction. My address is 2715 Field Ridge Drive in Waukesha, Wisconsin. As far as the architecture, nothing's been set in stone. It's kind of just conceptual at this point. Obviously, without approval on the development itself, Mr. Walters and his family don't want to go start spending money on architectural plans. You hate to spend money on architecture on a building that you may never build if the project never gets developed. The intent was to show you something. They're conceptual. We wouldn't have a problem coming back and saying this is what we have for development, or this is what these buildings are going to look like. We understand the code fully. I think there's sometimes some interpretation of that code where we say, you know what, we see it quite a bit. We do a lot of metal buildings. We do a lot of vinyl buildings. We do a lot of masonry or precast buildings. In a lot of places where they have these metal building restrictions, we often find that they prefer the new metal because it's actually more durable, lasts longer, and looks better than an 18-foot tall vinyl-sided building. It's just, the metal panels have come a long way over the last 5 years. I'm not saying that we're planning on submitting that, but I throw that out there because a lot of times we'll come with plans to this commission and show you, and we can show you elevations and the rest of it. But at this time, we didn't want to spend money on architectural plans without knowing exactly what or wasn't going to be approved. Those are just conceptual, but our intent is to comply with the building codes that you have here in Vernon. You guys have any specific questions on the building themselves? I think the footprints and the elevation heights are very close to what we would like to see. And I agree that we are looking to try to keep that rural farm type feel. I think that'll actually complement the area quite well. But Mr. Walters made it apparent to us since the very beginning of the project that he wants to do a first-class facility here. He's not trying to pack density. He's not trying to overproduce a storage site. He's always said since the very beginning, we want to make sure this is a high-end type storage facility for high-end type users. So that's what we're going to build towards.
Freeing up 17 more feet on the right-of-way, pushing did your buildings get pushed back? It looks like, it's hard to say, pushed back into the lot at all?
Yeah, so the 17 foot of additional right-of-way pushed the entire building back an additional 17 feet as well, so.
And how did it go to the west then? Did it stay on the same?
Pretty close. I don't know the exact dimension. I didn't dimension that exactly, but it's pretty close because we were also constrained by the setback, and we tried to keep it as close to the setback from the cul-de-sac as well. In a perfect world, our original intent was, and it was kind of unfortunate with the right-of-way setback, is the existing silo. We wanted the building being close to the silo to create that barn architecture and complement each other. Unfortunately, because of the additional right-of-way and setback, we kind of lost a little bit of that proximity to each other because the silo is currently in the existing right-of-way in the setback, so we couldn't put the new proposed building in it. So that's probably, if you're looking at the two plans, that's probably a good reference point of how things shifted.
It doesn't appear like it moved west at all. And if it did, it's very, very small
Right,
amount.
right. Yeah, and then we just had to curve the driveway. Oh, and that's one thing I just wanted to mention about the parking stalls. With the little curve and bend in the driveway entrance, we ended up losing one parking stall. However, I spoke with Mr. Walters, and that one lost parking stall, there's actually, I mean, that's the striped out parking stalls, but because this is one business, kind of operating, it's his own business, there is inherent tandem type parking in front of the storage garage, the bays as well, if they needed it, so.
So you're saying that the plan went from 6 spaces, and I think I see that now to 5 spaces.
Right, 5, but yeah, just inherently, just because the front of the garage doors.
Right, have to be clear, right.
Could be cleared if we needed, so.
Do you expect much customer parking? In-person customers
But,
parking?
yeah, that's my question. If we could get more information on the number of passengers that might store their cars there before a ride, for instance. One car. Sure. So it's not like 10 people are going to show up in 10 different cars.
I don't think a hot air balloon would take that many people in.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Sure. The other thing that I forgot to mention previously is that our ordinance does require asphalt or concrete for driveways, et cetera. And so that's being provided for the hot air balloon business. That's all asphalt coming in off the roadway. For the RV storage, it's asphalt coming off the roadway, but then it transitions to gravel. And so that is not normally, that's not allowed without a waiver from Chapter 144, or an exception for Chapter 144. So if you choose to allow that, that does require an exception be granted per 144.
Yeah, we are paving from the cul-de-sac, at least past the right-of-way, the
Right.
driveway apron, to be asphalt, and then after that transition to gravel.
As far as,
After the business is up and running, the plan would be to asphalt that as well. I don't want just the gravel there, but starting up and
So you would you,
between the buildings.
the RV, so would you be opposed to a time frame for paving it?
Depends on the time frame you give me.
Well, a year to 2 years, something along those lines?
Say at least 2 years.
Okay.
I think a time frame would be tough based on there's no way you can guarantee the occupancy of those units. The other thing with RVs, it's not like you're gonna take your RV to the grocery store every day. It's minimal use, and turning an RV on asphalt
notes here, sorry.
So, again, my main concerns were the landscaping, the architecture from National Avenue, and then the material of the pavement between the storage buildings. That's sort of where I needed direction on.
Yeah, and that's one of the, kind of one of the benefits, I guess, that accidentally happened is when the building got pushed back the 17 feet, that reduced the visibility. So if we were to shift the landscaping maybe that we had behind the first building there along the property line, I mean, we could shift that a little bit to the north, and because now that's a much closer to the building. If you look at the revised landscape or revised site plan, there's less of a gap between
Between both buildings.
right. So if that row of landscaping that's in the back, if we were to just shift that to the north a little bit, that would probably accomplish what you're looking for.
Which row of landscaping in the back? Which are you referring to?
It's in the landscape plan, we show some shrubs right along the property line there,
On the, right,
right on the west property line.
yes.
That if we were to just slide that to the north, looks like about.
Oh, to block the parking and loading area.
Yeah,
Right. That would certainly improve things, but my concern was that those are just shrubs, and that may not be enough of a screen, because that driveway is right on the property line. There's no vegetative buffer now between that residence and then this use. They have landscaping west of their driveway, right?
Mhm.
But as they come in on their driveway, the view to the left-hand side is clear. So what I'm suggesting is that those become evergreen trees. You shift them north, but I think they still have to come as far south as that gap in their landscaping, because there's landscaping on their property on the west side of their driveway, and there's sort of a gap in between it. So it's got to make sure it comes far enough south that it covers that gap.
okay. Yeah, and we're okay. We can talk with our landscape architect, and I mean, whether it's evergreens or they make other things that are green and tall and.
Right, but
thick, so-
something that stays green year round,
Mhm.
or a fence in combination with landscaping might be okay too. If you wanted to do shrubs and a fence behind them, something like that would,
Okay.
that would go a long way too.
Yeah. And we're okay working with you to address that offline, and
There actually is trees there now that are about this tall. That's, pine trees or evergreens
Where are those located?
along the lot line, right along the driveway on our side.
Where this landscaping is shown?
Yeah, but further north, I mean, it goes almost all the way up to the road.
So we'd need to see that. I mean, that'd have to be represented on here.
They're already there. I mean,
No, I know, but I don't have, it's not shown on any of my plans. I can't see it on a photograph, so it would have to,
my intent was always that we'd have more evergreen taller trees along in there.
okay.
That was one of the things that I planned on originally.
Yeah, and again, the only reason I'm kind of harping on this is because it is a commercial use next to an existing residence, and so that's the really only potential incompatibility here. And I'm not saying it's incompatible, but this is where the buffer is, and that's where the detail needs to be paid, to make sure that there's no issues. So,
And we understand your intent here, and we could definitely work with you and find a happy.
does the Plan Commission have any thoughts on landscaping and what the treatment should be along that edge?
We definitely need a buffer in between this property and the single-family home to the west. Not only should there be some evergreens or something in there, I'm not sure where the ones are located now. How far south does that come from the roadway?
All the way to the end of the driveway. We're just about to
To the end of their driveway?
Where it sort of where their driveway sort of curves?
Yeah, and there's a couple other trees that are still existing there that are gonna stay there.
Okay.
And then, like I said, I've even discussed with the neighbor about putting arborvitae's up and
you referring to you say those existing pines? Are those right across from the driveway to that farm across? Oh, it is.
You can't really see it.
Right along here then. This space here? Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it'll be extremely helpful to know where those are.
Yep.
And to kind of see what's out there and what remains to be screened.
Scott realized that we had small trees that were out there, we never even talked about that. Those were planted about 10 years ago.
About how many?
Dozen maybe?
Oh, okay.
Okay. And we could get you some more information on those.
Sure.
And, yeah. Ken's right, I didn't even realize those were there.
In my opinion, the shrubs along that lot line are basically not gonna do anything in the winter. The same with along the front of the building there, when we've got hydrangeas. They're green maybe 6 months out of the year, and then they go down. There's nothing there. With having it, you've got kind of a planting bed there with shredded mulch on there, that's gonna take a lot of upkeep. I would rather see some bigger trees out in front and eliminate a lot of the shrubs.
Okay.
On the west side, I don't know if they do anything over there.
You mean in the front of the building, between the building and the road?
Right.
That takes away from the whole plan of having it look like a barn if it's all
Well, leave
lined
that
with
up to the
trees.
landscape, right? It doesn't have to take away from the building, they can accent the building a little bit. There isn't, that side of the building, like Sean said, doesn't have much architecture.
It will, just in this picture.
Okay,
It will.
in addition to that, I think we need some evergreen trees off the southwest corner of that smaller storage building, back by the pond back there. On the larger building on the west side, there's a number of lights that are shining on there. Even though you're not gonna see it, it doesn't shine, I mean, most of them shine down, you're still gonna see that light fixture from that house. There's about 5 or 6 that would be exposed there, if you look on the lighting plantings. So there should be some evergreen plantings off the southwest corner of that smaller building.
I mean, the neighbor does have a tree line on their side of the property on that edge.
What type of trees are those?
Yeah, they're pretty dense tree line through there.
Those are deciduous trees?
I believe, I'm not sure, it might be a combination of them both, I don't know offhand exactly. If you look at, on the site plans, there's an aerial in the background.
Yeah, I see that, probably in the summer, right? No snow on the ground there, I don't know what kind of trees those are. Has that stormwater pond been increased in size, and you no longer have the infiltration pond?
Yeah, so as we've been working with the county on getting the county stormwater permit, there was some discussion. I had a meeting with them a couple weeks ago because we initially had an infiltration pond that we needed to create for our TSS removal. And because there's an existing kind of basin there, and the entire area doesn't really drain to a pond or a creek or anything like that. It basically drains to a kettle to the west and then eventually infiltrates over time. So working with Leaf at the county, he said, you know, rather than the expense of the infiltration pond, I tell you what, why don't we, because normally you'd go through, based on the soil testing that we've done, the soils don't infiltrate real well, but that's where all the water has to go eventually in the area that he said, rather than building your infiltration pond with expensive engineered soil, we're gonna make the pond deeper. And instead of going for the exemption because the infiltration rates are so low of the existing soils, we'll count that infiltration, even though it's low, but we're gonna make the bathtub essentially bigger to hold more water to try to infiltrate more, which reduces the amount of runoff going through the neighbors down to the kettle anyways. So it's kind of a win-win on, from both the neighbors, from the surrounding stormwater, because we're reducing that, and from Mr. Walter's perspective, he won't need to build that engineered fill basin also, just make the dry portion of the pond bigger and deeper.
Where does the water along the highway, or National Avenue drain to?
Right now, there's a existing a ditch along National Avenue that we're just gonna continue it on the same path. I believe it goes from the west to the east, and then it crosses National about, I'm trying to think. You don't have, I'm trying to think, if you were to look on your plans, let's see what sheet. There's a culvert, if you look at the landscape plan, you can see the culvert there.
I see some extremely long culverts. What keeps those clean? And what's the purpose of the length of those culverts there?
Which culverts are you referring to?
Well, you've got one on the northwest property that goes underneath the neighbor's driveway also. And then there's one on the northeast corner of the property that I'm not sure what purpose that serves.
So the culverts are, we've got the existing one as you're coming into the cul-de-sac, and that's just conveying the stormwater that's in the existing ditch to follow its existing pattern. And then there's gonna be culverts, obviously at the driveway entrances to the cul-de-sac.
I'm talking about along National Avenue, you've got two culverts out there. One at the northwest corner and one at the northeast.
Can I?
You've got a long culvert here, I'm not sure what that purpose that serves. And this one, this one starts over here and goes all the way across the neighbor's driveway.
Yeah, those are existing, so we weren't wanting to do anything with them.
How do you keep those clean?
Those are in the right of way, they're existing, they're county right of way, like any kind of road.
County cleans out the culverts?
I live on National Avenue and the county has never done anything on, we clean,
But they are the counties, they own them.
if you go across National Avenue where they reconstructed everything,
So Village of Vernon made me put in a culvert, they don't come out and clean it.
yeah, but you're on
I
Long,
own it, I had paid for it.
And clean mine.
I know the county will come out if there's an issue, if there's a drainage issue, but they don't come out clean them.
I'm just wondering how this is gonna be maintained, where that water goes. 'Cause I know last time this proposal came in, there were a lot of concerns about drainage and water.
Well, they got a 50-foot right of way, a lot of land now to come in and put a big ditch if they absolutely have to.
By moving that building back, does that interfere with the drainage in between the parking area and the corner of that first building?
It did, and that was, from a drainage perspective, that's what we've been working through. That was probably the biggest change that we had, is working with that, when the building got pushed back. We had to change the direction that some of the water went. It used to go in between that little gap between the sidewalk. When that got pinched, now in fact, I do have the grading plan.
Revised plan?
Yeah, and these are some of the technical detailing that we're working through. So initially, we used to run the swale between that point, and we were running it around here and then back. We had, with this getting pinched, we had to change the routing, so instead of going that way, it's gonna go this way to a culvert under here and catch the main swale that comes along here. That will be in a drainage easement that we have to provide. And that was one of the benefits of some of the changes in working with the county on this pond design. In initially, we didn't have a way to get the two lots to that infiltration basin. So initially, we were gonna say, these two lots, when they came in to build, that they would have to do their own infiltration and water quality, and we would provide the peak discharge quantity. But with the change in the pond, and with the swale becoming the main artery of bringing the stormwater through the site, we can now pick up all the infiltration and water quality for these lots in this pond.
So you didn't have to move that smaller storage building back in?
Nope, that did not move at all.
So how will the future storage buildings be accessed?
They will be, that swale that you see crossing,
North to south, the big swale that goes north to south, yeah.
yep, right now it's bending around the larger storage building,
Mhm.
and then it drains over to the pond.
Right.
What I envision for the next, when the future buildings get expanded, that the driveway between the two storage, the proposed buildings now will get extended, and they'll end up being a little culvert that has to go, or a storm sewer of some type to accommodate the future
Sure.
parking and
Gotcha.
in front of the buildings. And we took that into account where those future buildings would be, because we know that there'd be a stormwater easement there, so that way we could put a storm line, bury a storm pipe if needed for that expansion without having to change the easement.
Is there any chance that your certified survey map may need to change? Based on the
Well,
drainage and the easements and so on, you got some preliminary comments from the county where.
yeah, and and that's why before tonight, I wanted to make sure all those landmines of potential issues are kind of taken care of, so that you at least see the site plan that wouldn't be changing. So the CSM, the revision that you'd see on it is the additional 17 feet of right-of-way and the addition of the stormwater easements that they need. And then the little wording and some of the narrative stuff, but we took into account when we made the site plan changes, knowing that these are gonna be on the CSM, and so they won't impact anything on the site plan.
Let's talk a little bit about timing and everything. I'm personally sensitive to, you guys want to get going, and we don't want to have any delays or anything like that. To the extent, if we can avoid them anyway. You're coming in with modified CFM tonight. I don't know how the Plan Commission, if they've had an adequate opportunity to really review those. We are under a deadline to 90 days from February 4th, I think, Sean, to May 5th, which means we do have the April meeting in the event that we get delayed here. I do understand the point about architectural plans, but there's nothing really to approve architecturally wise. Nothing's been finalized. In landscaping, we talked at length about landscaping. We haven't gone through, I haven't pulled the Plan Commission yet. Commissioner Nowak and Sean have given their views. I tend to agree with what you guys are saying, but there's changes. It sounds like you guys are, flexible. You've indicated you're flexible. You haven't settled on architecture yet. We understand you don't want to spend a lot of money on plans if you're not going to get approval, but we have given them conceptual approval. This is close to what they've.
We've given a rezone approval, we've given conceptual approval really as part of the rezoning, because we required that the site plan of operation is consistent with the concept that was approved as part of the rezoning. So it's not, obviously it's not final approval, but it's sort of the nod that says, this is, we understand this is coming, and we rezone the property because of it. My only comments, Mr. President, is that It's obviously the plan commission's decision as to whether or not this comes back again. In my staff report, I've sort of alluded to, if you chose to, you know what the architecture looks like conceptually, if you wanted to approve this pending staff review, that, you know, that would be fine with me. I would be happy to do the same thing with landscaping, et cetera, but I understand if that's not the direction that you want to go. The other direction would be to approve the site plan of operation in CSM, but still require them to come back one more time for final details. And so you get to sign off on the landscaping and the architecture and so on.
And I guess our hope here would be that you could approve it with the condition that we address the comments satisfactory to your review, being Sean's review, that if you were open to it, approve it with the condition that we address all these comments. And I mean, maybe let Sean have that discretionary approval to say, yeah, this was pretty minor. We don't need to go take your time at a future meeting. And it allows us to kind of proceed forward with getting the CSM. The CSM is very important. They'll be able to get that done so that we can get those lots sold. That's one of the initiators of being able to create the capital for some of these improvements. So we just want to keep the ball rolling if we can, and we're open. We're not trying to hide anything. And that's, I mean, I've been working with Sean on this, and we've been bouncing things back and forth. That we'd hope that you would maybe let Sean have some discretionary approval here to, if there's something that's major that he obviously would have the authority to say, you know, I want to take this back to you for approval.
The other option would be to approve the CSM contingent on the change to the right-of-way to meet the county standards, to include the county's notes to satisfy our surveyor's comments, and approve that, let them get going on that, and then bring the site plan of operation back for details as well. So there's basically three different options.
Is the county still, do they have approval yet from the county on stormwater?
No,
Still
they don't.
pending too?
They're still working on that, right? You guys don't have your access permit from county DOT either.
We've got, well, I don't know, we haven't officially got the permit in hand, but when they reviewed it, they had no comments on the roadway plans and asked us to submit the final permit fee.
Yeah.
So, and that's been sent, so, and the only comment he had was, hey, make sure that the CSM has the appropriate right-of-way.
Scott, refresh my memory. We talked originally about improvements in the county right-of-way, whether or not XL or decel lanes would be required. And so their thought was, based on the given proposed uses, the hot air balloon business and the storage, that they wouldn't require any improvements for those uses. And then it's kind of unknown what lots 2 and 3 are going to be. And so at the time that those lots are going to be proposed, they would evaluate this?
Yes, so each one of these lots that there's a proposal, we'd have to go back to the county and say, hey, we're gonna be adding this, have we triggered a threshold?
So what is the trigger? Because once the CSM's approved and once the site plan's approved, this would never go back to the county. And just a site plan for a lot in the village never goes back to the county for approval. So what I
would recommend is just make it a condition of approval of this, is that future lots would require would require us to go back to the county, show them the plan, and get something back.
Sure, that makes sense to me, if it's okay.
That would be
Do you have lots 2 and 3 sold or under contract?
Can't tell until we have approved CSM.
Any interest, though, in them?
Yes, lots of interest.
I get a phone call once a week, not only on Mr. Walter's property, but a lot of people are looking for businesses.
And the other question I had on kind of the approval timing that we want to, obviously, if we can get, I don't know if are you allowed early grading permits in the village?
Which kind of permits?
Early grading, and just kind of discussing this, what can we get approved now based on what we have, and hopefully allowing Sean to have that kind of staff level approval if there are certain things that you wanted to see back. Obviously, the landscaping wouldn't come towards the end, and we'd have to have the grading completed prior to any kind of buildings going up.
I'm not familiar with early grading permits. I don't know if Vince has ever allowed that to occur, early before final permits are issued, basically, before they have all their approvals.
Vince let us use the early grading permits on like the con oil facility, for example. You're talking about Vince Boudier?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that was in the Village of Big Bend.
Yes, yeah, we've done them in, I don't know, yeah, I guess this particular this village. I mean, we've done them before.
No, I know what happens. I know they do. I just don't know how he handles that and if that's allowed in any way.
And that's why I'm kind of thinking, along in those approaches is why I'm hoping you guys would be open to let's approve it subject to your final reviews of these at a staff level. So that way we don't lose that time. And I don't know if there's an issue, but I'm just thinking down the line of the timing from getting onto agenda and going through getting here to the final approvals, that there could be a delay in that aspect, which is why I'm hoping you can just approve, and then whether Sean, you can have the discretion to say, yeah, this is above, I think this should go to commission, maybe pieces, whether it's the architecture before we put the buildings in, or the landscaping needs to, if you wanted to see the landscaping before it's installed, or because you still have,
Yeah,
you probably have a final say of before, I mean, if there's a landscaping type issue still working out, you still would have the occupancy type, hey, we're not gonna get your CO until which time. So you still have leverage there.
We've approved site plans in the past and said, hey, just bring the architecture back or just bring the landscaping back for final sign off. We've done it both ways. We've kicked it to me for approval, and we've brought it back to the Plan Commission for review and approval as well. So there's some precedent with that, but it is certainly not my decision. It is your decision. And in terms of an early start and grading plan, wouldn't you at least need county stormwater approval before
Absolutely.
you started doing any of that?
Yeah. And that's where, if you could approve everything subject to landscaping or architecture, that would allow us to basically say, hey, once we get our stormwater and grading, all those permits all in hand, then we can just proceed forward.
Well, I'm always concerned about piecemeal approvals, and I don't really like developers or property owners to keep coming back over and over. That's not good for anyone, really. So we're trying to strike a balance. A lot of times we leave it to staff, like Sean says, if there's gonna be minor changes and we have a very good, idea of what the building's gonna look like and the landscape is almost tied to the architecture as far as the landscaping in front of the building to National Avenue, how it looks from the National Avenue. I think I've heard Sean and Commissioner Noack say as to the landscaping to the west and the whole residential area, the home to the west, we need to buffer that up a bit.
Right. And we're gonna see what existing trees are planted out there in terms of what needs to be filled in, and so those are my two issues. Those are the things that are not decision, but final approvals yet.
Right.
And then we still have to make a decision on the asphalt versus gravel.
Right, I was just gonna get there. So to leave it up to staff, Sean, as opposed to coming back here, I'm getting a little uncomfortable, if you will, because I don't have a clear vision of either the landscaping plan or architecture to say, oh, well, Sean, just figure it out with the landowners. I don't know how the rest of you feel about that.
It's my feeling that we should be looking at building site and operational plans, but we've got nothing on the building whatsoever. Only the location of it. If these architectural plans aren't complete, and we haven't talked about the building and the metal siding or anything yet.
You're right, that's where I was gonna go, but then Sean, we're gonna have to give Sean if we're gonna leave it to Sean, well, even if we don't leave it to Sean, I think we owe it to the developer property owners to give them a direction too about the metal siding and the gravel driveways.
Yes, sir.
If I may, first I would say, I totally respect your position that you all hold. We totally understand where you're coming from, and I guess our standpoint is, we would love to see you grant us approval for the CSM. For the simple fact that that will allow us to do several things. You can begin working on budgets for development. You can begin working on selling lots. You can begin once it's approved, you know those lots are there, you can actually start understanding that, okay, this is approved, we can work on architectural plans. Knowing where those buildings are and they're approved to go there, we can work on landscaping plans for those. I wholeheartedly agree with you that we should come back to you and say, here, for every lot, this is the landscaping and this is the building we look to do, and we'll wait to get your approvals to do that. But by holding the CSM up, there's a chance that that could change, and nobody's gonna wanna spend any more money. I'll tell you this, since the very beginning of this project, it's not like it's Ken Mandel who's trying to ram a 50-unit apartment complex through the. He's met with the owners of the properties adjacent to him. We've met with Sean, we've met with staff, we've met with the county. We've done everything we can at every turn, not to shortcut anything, and to do what was right. So, I mean, I can tell you, just in dealing with Ken and knowing Ken for years, that he's not gonna get your approval today and come back and say, come back and do the right thing, because that's what he's done since he began this project. We would hope and ask that you approve the CSM today, so that we can come back to you with more information, knowing that it's not money that's being misspent.
I'd say the site plan and CSM. Right. And maybe you make a condition just said before building commences, must have landscape and architecture approved. If that's okay.
Sean,
It's my intention, like Sean mentioned earlier, maybe to go ahead with the certified survey map.
Yeah.
Get approval on that, and then have you come back with the landscaping, revised site plan.
Yeah, what they're asking for what they're asking for specifically is approval on the site plan of operation as well, with the condition that they need to bring the architecture and the landscaping back for final approval. But they said they'd have their overall site plan approval pending that be brought back. That's what they're asking for.
Right, because that would allow us that once we have stormwater and the county permits to be able to start grading and that's why the site plan that we gave you tonight, we didn't have it complete because we wanted to make sure that that the site plan where the buildings are at, the revised with the right of way, make sure that's set and isn't going to be changing so that you're comfortable with what you're seeing, that it wasn't a major change to the site plan. We wanted to make sure that was ready tonight for you to see that.
I see some room between the actual building print here and the setback line on the front there. How many feet is that?
It's a couple feet. I think it's 2 or 3 feet, and the reason why we didn't put it right on the setback is because the architecture isn't complete, and if there was a little bit of an overhang, just a little bit of cushion room that, so there wasn't a problem.
Sean, would you be in favor of a motion to approve the certified survey map pending the needed approvals under your guidance?
Well, yeah, the certified survey map, before it gets signed anyways,
Right.
gets reviewed by staff to make sure that they've done everything they were supposed to do, have the proper right-of-way, have all the notes on there, have all the corrections per our surveyor. So we get that and we say, and then I tell Karen, say they've met all the conditions that were required, it's ready for signature. And so that's usually the process that happens. There's certified survey maps are almost always never approved when they're 100% done. There's almost always a couple of issues that have to be cleaned up. And so that's the case here. I would not have an issue with that because that's standard procedure.
Sure. Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the certified survey map pending the needed approval, adjustments, we call them that, modifications, according to Sean's recommendation.
I would second that.
Excuse me, is that a recommendation to the village board?
With the With a recommendation to the village board?
We're recommending approval to the village board, correct?
Okay.
I just want to make sure I heard you right.
Okay.
Right, and so just to,
We should go over those conditions.
yeah, I was about to say what they were. The conditions are satisfy all comments, conditions, concerns of the plan commission, the board, the planner, engineer, and surveyor with regard to the certified survey map. Those are outlined in my report. I was over those. And then satisfy all comments, conditions, and concerns of Waukesha County with respect to dedication of National Avenue right-of-way and access to National Avenue. And then finally, just the payment of invoices. And so
And county approval.
that's the second condition. Yep.
Also wanted to state for the record that Mr. Walters is always timely on his payments also to the village. I just wanted to state that for the record.
Yeah, that by default, yeah, all comments for the planner, engineer, and surveyor.
Just to be sure, I had 5 comments that I had that would have held me back from approving anything. One was the stormwater approval. You've got that covered. The gravel driveway,
That's a site plan of operation, though. That's a different issue.
okay, so we're not,
So we're just talking about division of the lots, right?
okay, so we're not approving that part,
Right.
okay? Landscape,
Site plan of operation,
site plan operation, lighting,
site plan.
and then the architecture, which we don't have,
Yep.
including the metal siding.
Yeah, that's all site plan, exactly. So this is just the creation of the lots,
Okay.
as the first motion.
We've had a motion and a second, right? Yeah, we
That's
did have a
correct.
second, that's right.
Yes.
Further discussion on that, I think most of my concerns are, just like Commissioner Solani, are on the site plan of operation. That's,
Right.
now they've asked, well, they're asking for approval of the CSM, but they're also looking for approval of site plan. If we approve the CSM but not the site plan, what's going to be the effect of that?
Well, they're asking for approval of the site plan, but they're willing to bring back the landscape plan and the architecture after the fact for final sign off by the plan commission and board if you choose, before occupancy. When you say building plan, like the interior of the building? Right, 600 square feet of office, for instance, sure. Right, we don't have any detailed architecture at all, right? Right. That's a good point, and I assume we're gonna get a floor plan when we get the final architecture. But,
Of course, we come back to submit a floor plan, elevations, details of the structural engineering, and
so, again, the motion is for the CSM.
For the CSM only condition, you've listed the conditions. And they come back with the site plan of operations, we'll get our changes, or we'll defer them to you, Sean, with direction and
Yep, however you wanna do it.
however we want to do it. But we'll do it one motion at a time. Okay, any further comments, Sean, about the approach we're taking here?
No, not,
Trying to take here? Further comments, discussion by the plan commission? So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Part the way there now. And let's hope it doesn't change. You know, like, for example, the drainage easement. Get into the stormwater and then make it wider. No, it's over here or whatever.
well, if it does change, they have to come back.
gotta come
They have to
back.
come back.
Right. Now, the site plan and plan of operations, we got a lot of work to do here. I mean, petitioner has a lot of work to do. I don't know what the commission's feeling is about them coming back on that, or try to get through some of it, make it conditional. If we do, we gotta get, and then who's gonna make the decision on architectural, landscaping? It's gonna be Sean, or is it gonna come back to Plan Commission?
It needs to come back, the plan commission.
Come back, well, we'll just take a consensus, come back, both?
My concession is Sean should know the difference if he needs to come back to the plan commission or not.
Jim?
Come back to the plan.
Okay, so we got a consensus of coming back.
Whether it's approved or not, those two things are coming back.
Those
to
two
the
things
Plan
are coming
Commission.
back. Then the question is, do we give them, approval of how? Condition of those coming back?
Right, we could simply add a condition here that one of the conditions of approval is going to be that the petitioner seeks approval from the Plan Commission or the Plan Commission board, however you want to do it, for architectural elevations and floor plans and landscaping plan prior to issuance of building permits or occupancy permits.
And we would include maybe parking on that if you're gonna look at the plans of the office, whether 5 places, 6, 7, I mean, it was mentioned before, it was hard to determine whether 5 was gonna be adequate without looking at a floor plan of the office, so you could,
Right, but they're limited to 4 employees too, so, which is already in excess of what's required for office space floor, so we certainly could throw parking in there, but that's gonna change things. So if you're gonna change the parking, then you're gonna change the impervious surface and the layout and other things. So I think you need to make a decision on the parking now, unless for some reason, if they come back and they show they have 2,000 square feet of office space in the building, that's gonna change things. But they come back with something that shows 600 square feet or close to it, like they have, anything less than 800 square feet would be okay.
And we,
Just to speak to the parking stalls, that's dictated by building code anyway, so if we change that to 2,000 square feet, we'll never get a building permit. Your building type and your occupancy are dictated by the parking stall.
Well, right, but our ordinance says if you have, for every 200 square feet of office space, you have to have a parking stall, right? So that's what I was going by, but that doesn't even matter because the number of employees trumps that. And so we know there's 4 employees there. We know there has to be at least 4 parking stalls. There's an extra one for visitors, and you said you could park your truck indoors, and so it all works out. So my only point is if you come back with building plans that show 2,000 square feet of office space, is gonna be a problem.
right,
Plan Commission think 5 is okay? 5 parking spaces.
I don't think there's any reason to discuss it at this time. We're
Right.
not gonna approve part of the site plan.
Right, that's,
The whole thing should come back and we'll take a look at it all and do everything at once.
okay, the whole thing coming back?
Question first.
Okay.
Does just approving the certified survey map do enough for you to keep going?
it helps from a marketing standpoint for the lots. But obviously then it becomes, we have to tell potential buyers that, okay, you may buy this lot, but you have no access to it because there's a cul-de-sac that needs to be built. We have to grade the site, we have to wait, whatever time here. I mean, we're close to having plans ready to resubmit, but whatever the time to get on the next agenda and then the approvals, we may have the county permit and be ready to go, but we're just sitting, waiting to go through the approval process, which is why we're asking from the site plan perspective that can we get that portion approved? Because it could be subject to if there's major changes that we make, we'd have to come back and Sean could say, whoa, these are pretty major site plan changes that we're gonna kick you back, but we're pretty comfortable that the site plan isn't changing, which is why we're trying to limit this to landscaping and architecture, because I'm hearing that's the rub right now, so.
Conceptually, I haven't heard any issue with
Right.
the concept that you're going with at all. I still have heartburn over the gravel driveway and the architecture issue, which I think has to be decided by the board. So to get that confirmed, it has to come back. I don't know how we can
if we approve the certified survey map that we have,
Mhm.
can they get started on the roadway, on the cul-de-sac?
No, because the civil plans are part of the site plan and everything else, and so we have not approved those. It's all tied together.
That's why I was asking if it,
Yeah.
if it did them in,
Well, can we issue it some type of an approval on starting of that cul-de-sac?
Well, again, you could approve portion of the site plan, but that's what you said you didn't want to do.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, I don't think that would really benefit us, because last thing we want to do is build our city road and then not get an approval for a site plan. It's,
Yeah, you guys don't have issues, it doesn't sound to me like there's issues with the roadway or the cul-de-sac or the stormwater plan, which is the site plan. You care about the buildings and landscaping.
Right.
And that we can all come back to you for.
We're not sure on the stormwater plan yet if that's gonna be approved by.
Right, we don't know. We don't know yet,
yeah,
but
and that's why this site plan, I've been bouncing plans and been working with Leaf on this concept, so we're just buttoning up the resubmittal to him this week, so that way we can go back, probably early next week, have him start doing his final reviews. He'd probably have it, my gut, based on our conversations, he may have a couple little tweaks of change a note here or there, but I've already worked with him on the concept, kind of with the stormwater design and how we're going through this, so I don't anticipate anything major coming out of this. I mean, if he has any more comments, they're probably gonna be, can you label something or add some more erosion control someplace? And like I said, if he comes back and has something that changes this whole site plan, we would have to come back to you then
Right, that's right.
anyways.
Well, in the interest of progress, I think what we've just done is approved the CSM, and we've already established that the approval of all the details underneath that CSM goes through Sean and then finally to the board, if I'm understanding that correctly, Sean?
the CSM goes through me and then it gets signed by,
Well, it's gotta be approved by the village board, and then.
yes, the village
and then
board,
the
but
conditions
they're not
will
gonna,
need to be
but the village board,
satisfied
That's what I
before
mean.
it's signed by
Yep.
the village.
but the village board probably won't see an updated or maybe they'll see an updated CSM, I don't
Hope
know.
so. Meeting's next
In a
week.
week?
Well, I don't know, I mean, they have a lot of comments to get through here.
Oh, maybe not then.
Yeah, usually, that's a pretty fast turnaround.
Yeah, we wouldn't
It'd
have
probably
the
be at the
CSM
beginning of April.
final.
So that may be holding it up too.
Well,
But the board could approve
can
it
still
based
approve
on,
it.
based on satisfying the staff's conditions.
Right. We just wouldn't sign it or record it
Right.
until the conditions.
Until all the conditions have been satisfied. We've looked it over, said all the conditions are met. The county says all their conditions are met, and then it can be signed.
Right, I don't sign anything until I see
A letter.
a letter from
Right.
Sean and the county. Every condition is met before I sign anything. On behalf of the village, not me personally, on behalf of the village.
And typically, the village president will put this on the agenda for the village board with the same conditions that the plan commission stated.
Right, exactly the same conditions as recommended by the plan commission.
Do you want that in form of a motion?
No, you did that.
You did it, we did that already.
We're good.
We're going to. We're stuck at the site plan and plan of operations, and if, you know, if we wanna, we did make progress. April is coming.
I think we already took a consensus here.
Yeah, that
Should come back.
come back, and the question is there anything we can give them? And I don't know, Sean.
Well,
If it-
again,
if the- if
now that you know it's gonna come back, the choices are approve it and bring those back before building permits are issued, or don't approve it and have them bring everything back.
I'd like to see everything back here.
That's the way I'm leaning as well. Just because there's too many pieces missing right now. It's too ambiguous in my mind, what's being approved. If we're further along, better plans and so on, I feel differently about it. But I hate to slow you guys up too. that's what I'm struggling with. Fred, you got any?
No, and with everything that's been presented, you've done very well, okay? But for the village, it's something where we really don't have a good grip on what this is gonna ultimately look like, all the rest of that, and that's why what we're grappling with right now is the planning commission.
Yeah, I can tell you, we do this every month in different municipalities, sometimes several times a month. Almost every single I would say 95% of the approvals we get are conditional on between one and I've had as many as 47 different conditions on approvals. If we come back next month, we still will not have architecture. We may have a different landscaping plan if we decide to pay a landscape architect to update it without an approved CSM. I mean, those are the things where we don't have a list, I don't think, there's a list of items that is typical in most municipalities and most villages and most towns to say, it's approval based on these items. If you don't achieve any of these items, you're not gonna get your approval. But to say we want every one of these, outlined in detail, it really does just postpone everything.
Well, we
I'll
don't,
come back to you in a month and say, here are the drawings, here are the
We
landscape
understand
plans.
where we are at, too.
right,
Yeah, I
Yeah,
understand
we
what you're talking about.
right,
I absolutely do. Yep.
right, and we do, well, we've never approved anything out of this body without conditions, I don't think,
Yeah, never.
ever, ever.
Right, and that's why.
47 is kinda light,
understanding
you
we-
should have seen our
Yeah, it
cell
does.
tower.
And that's why,
There's like 47 pages, but anyway.
and that's why we're hoping that, because the only thing I'm hearing is maybe it's the landscaping and the architecture that, and we're okay just saying, hey, peel that off of the approval of this and say, before a shovel goes in the ground for these buildings or occupancy or building permits, we need to see those two components back, and we're fine coming back with those and but let the rest of the project proceed, because obviously, there's a month worth of grading work and things like that, and getting utility or the storm culverts and the storm ponds, and there's plenty of time and work to be done before we're putting in landscaping or we're even putting the foundations in the buildings. So that's why,
What we've approved tonight, will that allow you to do just what you're talking about?
when you're saying that everything has to come back, then no. If you say, we approve the site plan and operations, with the conditions of addressing any of the engineering comments and county permits and things like that, except for landscaping and building needs to come back, you can add that condition that those two items have to come back for your approval. If we got that, that would keep us moving forward.
If we came back to you next month with our architectural plans and landscaping plans, and we still didn't have approval from the county, we still couldn't do anything.
Right.
We're not meeting the conditions that Sean said.
why are we delaying it then?
Because once we have the county and once we have your site plan and plan of operations, and once we have the county approvals, we can start grading and building the site. We just would have to stop before if we made the condition that it was landscaping and building can't go in until those are approved. We could go up to that point, and then there would be a stop point where we couldn't go vertical on any buildings or foundations until you guys have blessed those two components.
You can't do any grading until you get county stormwater.
Right, and we're real close on that. So like I said, we're probably gonna be submitting to the county next week and
Probably should
getting
give
those
direction.
approvals, but getting on the village plan commission and boards, those have statutory notification periods and those, depending on the dates and things like that, that can, because we're limited by commission dates and board dates, where the county for the stormwater, they can approve them as soon as plans are done and they're satisfied.
What's the motion on the floor?
There is no motion. We passed the motion to recommend the CSM with those conditions, recommend approval to our village board. And now we're talking about site plan and plan of operation, trying to determine whether we should just table it until next meeting and have you come back with further details. Yeah, even if we approve it next month, there's gonna be conditions. There almost has to be. We understand you're not gonna be, nothing ever is exactly perfect. I guess personally get concerned if we put too much on staff, on Sean, too much discretion, and he says, well, I don't know if I should do that, and, you know, minor things is one thing, we've gotten into issues about what's minor and what's substantial and what isn't, at times. I wanna try to avoid those kind of issues in this particular case where we don't even have anywhere close to final plans, but we understand, you wanna keep going. And we're looking at the next meeting in April 14th, just the way the calendar fell in April, that's right. The last possible day in April for our second Wednesday is April 14th. So I don't know how much work you're gonna get on the ground between now and then. I don't know. I'm trying to be sensitive to slowing you guys down too. I don't really wanna do that. But you have gotten some conceptual, Sean, what did the site plan and plan of operation, we've seen some of this before, haven't we?
Yeah, we've seen a similar version to this at the rezoning stage.
Right, at the rezoning, right.
Yeah, and it hasn't significantly changed from that.
Recommending the 13 conditions and adding the 14th related to the elevations, floor plan, and landscaping
Well,
plan?
I'm not recommending anything. I mean, I'm recommending these are the conditions, but it's not my call as to what comes back and what gets approved. I'm willing to do whatever the plan commission and board would like me to do. And if they
Hey,
want,
For example, I mean, on Monday night, we had a very similar scenario in a development I'm working on in Monona, over in Madison, and they did exactly what we're talking about at a previous meeting. They approved the site plan, but wanted to see the landscaping. So Monday night, we went back with the landscape plan. It took them less than 5 minutes to say, oh, yeah, looks good now, and it was just a checkbox, and we were clear, so that's what we're hoping we could do here.
If it were just the landscaping plan, it would be no problem.
Yeah, it's landscape and architecture.
We don't even know if this is certain. I wanna see a building plan. I worked in 3 different communities and we never approved anything that we didn't have a building plan for.
Agreed, and like you said, that's why you would make it an exception, that you won't get approval until we review it and approve it. We, of course, will bring you a building plan.
I make a motion, we, table this, the site and operational plan, nothing wrong with the operational as far as I can see, site plan and building.
Again, I don't think we'll have architectural plans a month from now.
What's that?
I don't believe we'll have architectural plans a month from now.
And that's you're holding it up then.
But then, no, but you gotta sell the lots, and then people have to do the developments, and people have to understand the finance.
It-
Concern selling the lots.
right, if I can interrupt, there's almost every proposal for site plan of operation has finished architecture with it that we see. That's not unusual to occur. And so when you think you're taking a risk or whatever, I mean, you're already this far. You have CSM approval, you have rezoning approval. This development is on track, and so to develop the final architecture is not probably a huge risk for you. And again, 95% of the stuff that comes in for site plans does include finished architecture.
And
with
yeah,
it.
and the uniqueness about this one is because we're exploring different options, and in a typical development where you have an architect designing a building and things like that, these type of buildings are a little bit unique. That, I mean, we may have an architect. We're kind of exploring different ideas of, do you have an architect design and the building and all of that, which is a normal typical. But these type of buildings also, there's suppliers out there that you contract with, and they supply the drawings, and they build. It's kind of pre-manufactured.
Right, but that's got nothing to do with risk. That's just you haven't made up your mind which way you want to go yet.
Right, and they aren't going to give you plans. In a normal process, you can say, hey, I want to do the architecture, and then submit it, and then you work on all the building plans and designs. a lot of these suppliers won't give you beyond those concepts until you sign the contract that they're getting this building and that's kind of their inherent cost because they're bundling a package for you. And that's the uniqueness about this project is because we're exploring different ways of how to design. And this is more on the design side. Do you have a true architect design the whole building, or do we go with a manufacturer that designs it as part of their package? And so to come to you with an architectural plan, we will have already had to sign a contract with them if we went that route with the manufacturer. And then we're stuck with that if we end up not liking it, and going through that just takes a little bit more time. And that's like Mike was saying, we probably wouldn't be at that point in a month.
But if you're exploring options, how do you expect our plan commission to approve anything if you don't even know what you want?
Because
I'm
that's
struggling.
because it's the construction of it. Oftentimes in developments, more times than not, you don't know who's building the building.
But you have an idea what you want to build.
Right. But this one, because we can't give you the final plan, because it may be the supplier that's providing the plan.
Mr. Walters, you're raising your hand.
Yes. Yeah, I completely understand what everybody's been saying to this point. I know Scott's point, what he's got there, and I know Mike's, and I know each one of you. I've been in this town my entire life, so what happens in the town of Vernon or the village of Vernon isn't that unusual to me. What we'd like to be able to do is, we've got the certified survey map approval that you guys have already done. The county, they're set to finish it off like next week. So we'll have that done. So then that tells us that we would be able to start with grading. That's really the biggest thing I want to be able to get done now, is that we can go in and start grading and get everything set the way it needs to be for your approval. And at the same time, while the guys are doing that, and Mike's got the bids out for building the road and building all that stuff, at that same time, then we can be working with getting the building the way that it needs to be. And there's nothing that won't come back here that wouldn't meet your approval, obviously. But unless we can start that grading and start that process now that it's springtime, there's nothing I can do. If we have to get all that extra design in, which I thought, based on what Sean said, that we had enough, that's gonna push us back 2-3 months. And we won't be able to start anything, leveling off, getting any of the grading done, building ponds. We won't be able to do any of that until the end of summer.
Sean, what do they need to?
What I really want to be able to do is get all that stuff going, and then we can start on getting the condition, the building to you. That's why we gave you the pictures like this, so you had something to look at. So you see, this is what we're doing.
And what Mr. Walter was speaking to, they did, Scott did ask me, hey, if we submit these conceptual plans, can we still get site plan approval? And what I'd said was, yes, that has happened in the past. That's something we have done before. We've looked at things and we've conceptually approved them. For instance, which was the one on National Avenue. It was the contractor yard, the first one that we did.
D&J.
D&J, that one was approved with architectural plans finally approved by the planner. And so there was some precedent to that, and so I told them, yes, that has been done. That is a possibility. I obviously didn't say that's a done deal, but that is a possible approach. And so they didn't know that their landscape plan wasn't finished, or they didn't, so that was a different issue altogether. But I did tell them that was a possible path to approval.
D&J was pretty far along on what their building was going to look like and so on too, as I recall.
We had building plans submitted, but the architecture of the office portion of the building wasn't finished, and so that was kicked down the road.
But we did have some building plans. So what is it I mean, I think, our building inspector, Vince Budiak, does not issue early grading.
Right, he won't issue grading permits until you have your CSM approved, you have your zoning permit, which is your site plan of operation, permit. That's something I issue that says, here it is, and then all county approvals as well, so, the access permit and the stormwater permit. You can't get,
So when you say your CSM approved, that means all the conditions have been satisfied.
well, the CSM wouldn't necessarily need to be recorded for early grading. You just can't sell lots until the CSM's recorded.
Right, well, I get that, but you can get them under contract.
That's right. So the CSM does not have to be recorded to start the early grading, but he needs a zoning permit, he needs county approvals, stormwater, erosion control, access permit, all that stuff.
So what is the,
They wouldn't start any kind of building construction without the approval on that. So that's.
So I would have to issue the site plan of operation permit. I couldn't issue it until you met all of our staff conditions. You'd have to do all this, the engineer's conditions, the surveyor's conditions, and then once that's, and the county needs to submit their approval. Once that's done, I would write the permit, give you the permit. That would be enough for Vince with all those things to get going on grading, because essentially all that's left is building permits to issue at that point. However, he couldn't issue building permits because you wouldn't have your architecture fully approved, and so you need to come back, get that done. And so that's what the site plan of operation permit would say. It would say this does not include construction of the building or construction of the landscape, which needs to be approved. And so I would just do an addendum then to that after that came back and was
The
approved.
site plan does not include that.
The site plan would not, the permit that I issued first would not include building of the buildings or, installation of the landscaping.
Dan, what was your motion again?
to table it.
Yeah, he has to table it.
But it wasn't seconded yet.
Sorry, refresh me, you're gonna table, you wanna table
For additional information?
Right.
Site plan and plan of operation.
Table the site plan and plan of operation for, till April, or till our next plan commission meeting, April 14th. That was the motion. And we got into discussion right away without a second. Okay.
I think the problem here is that the site plan includes 3 lots and not just 1. A lot of the other developments we had, like the other contractor's yard, it was 1 lot.
So you're worried about them, it moving or the shape changing in some way?
I'm just wondering if we can issue a, I don't know if that's practice, issue a grading or approve the grading and drainage plan for, as soon as we get approval from the county. We leave that up to you to review that.
So rephrase that, approve the grading and drainage and that's it?
Everything's included in here. Can we just pull out the grading and the drainage plan?
But essentially, if you're not approving the architecture and you're not approving the landscaping, that is just the grading and the drainage.
Yeah, and obviously if the site plan changes significantly, that would have to come back as a amendment.
We don't know when we're gonna get a drainage or a stormwater
We
control plan
don't know,
approved by the county.
no.
And grading can't start before that, right?
Right, you cannot grade the site until you get erosion control and stormwater.
You said they're gonna do that next week, you said they're gonna submit it next week. It may take them 2 weeks to approve it.
Right, in a couple of weeks, yeah, so say we submit it and it took them, say it was 3 weeks, but we won't have the elevations probably for a significant amount of time, and then we're waiting for the next approval, the next meeting dates.
The next meeting date is 4 weeks away.
Yeah, ours.
Right,
April 14th.
so 4 weeks from now, it would be likely that we would have all of our other permits, all the other engineering comments and conditions, but we probably won't have the architectural elevations.
But you might, what do you expect to have in 4 weeks then? That we've been concerned about.
I would think in 4 weeks, we've got pretty much everything done except for, we'd have the landscaping, but we wouldn't probably have the building elevations completed by then. So that's the crux is, we would be done, and we're sitting, when we could be working on, holding on an architectural component of this, that we could be grading, and, because we've got it, I mean, it's gonna take, you say, Mike, I mean, at least a month of earthwork and prepping the site before we'd even start putting a shovel in the ground for the buildings.
Next month, we could approve the site and operational plan
All the way up except the architectural plans at
with
that
the
point.
condition that they come back with the architectural and building plan.
And maybe you can have your options further explored to give us a better idea of where you're gonna go architecturally. I mean, that's the problem I'm having. There's too many missing pieces. I wanna keep you guys going, but I just,
So is what
Just
you're
struggling
saying, that
with
we'd
it,
come
that's
back
all.
2 more times? Is that?
Sounds that way.
well, it depends on how far you are in your architecture. We've approved, like Sean has said, in a previous project where the building plans were in, and yeah, we were talking about the siding or the windows or something on D and J, and we left it to staff for final approval. Because there was relatively few things left to look at, and we gave you direction, and they're finally building it.
Right, and
After months and months and months. That's the other thing, that developers come in here and say, gotta go, gotta go, gotta go, and then they sit and, it's months. They haven't done anything. I can, at least, we've had a subdivision like that, and finally they're getting going. D and J took forever to get going. I mean, I appreciate that you wanna get going, but there comes a time where, you know, the plan commission wonders, really? Do you really wanna get going, or you just wanna get your approvals and then nothing happened for months anyway?
Well, I tell you, I'm sitting right now with all my equipment sitting outside, and I don't want it sitting outside another winter.
Well, Mr. Walters, I think you'll be done by the end of summer. I think we have confidence in you. I said, we have confidence in that you're gonna get going when you get going.
That's why I say, I mean, you said you were concerned that we'd just be sitting on it. Trust me, once we have approval, Mike's gonna start getting the contracts for the grading going. We'll get the architecture going right away. So we get the grading done, and then, you know, we can get the architecture to you, so we're not trying to rush that part.
Well, we had a motion. I'll second the motion, so we can have a vote on the motion, if nothing else. Further comments, Sean, or?
Could you
Commissioner?
repeat the motion per se, Mr. President?
The motion was made by Commissioner Nowak to table the approval of the site plan of operation for additional information needed.
Just the site plan.
Site plan, it was site plan of operation.
Right. We say them so fast together that it sounds like one word.
The mask does that.
Yeah, right. That's a problem.
I don't wear one.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion on the floor? Otherwise, we'll have a vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
Motion fails.
Got it.
Okay, so we're not tabling, so what are we, what?
I think
Maybe
maybe
I'll
we
start
need
with
to get
Sean.
more
What do you
spec-
recommend approving? I'd prefer to table, but I'm not even sure what we should be approving and how the conditions should read. We'll
Well,
have to work through them.
If it was up to me, which it is not, I would recommend that the site plan of operation be approved with the conditions that are included, with an additional condition that says site plan approval does not include the building and the landscaping, which shall be presented for approval to the plan commission prior to issuance of building permits.
I'll make that motion.
With all the conditions stated in the planner comments, Jim?
As stated, yes.
Right, and isn't it a recommendation to the,
Recommendation to the board, yeah.
Correct.
And so what I'd said was that just the plan commission approves the,
Right.
so the board is never gonna see they're gonna see that this time around, but the revised architecture and landscaping won't get to the board. Now, you may choose to change that and also require a board on that, but I'd said the plan commission would approve the architecture and the
Okay, so let's go
landscaping.
through this. So we've got 13 conditions, your site, and your staff review report, right?
Mhm.
And we're gonna add additional conditions as follows. So let's go through them one by one on your motion, Jim, because you said you were following his conditions. And then we'll ask for a second, okay?
So the petitioner shall submit revised architectural elevations and floor plans and landscaping plan to the Plan Commission for review and approval prior to issuance of building permits.
So architectural elevations, landscaping, and floor plans to the Plan Commission for their
Right.
approval before.
Be prior to issuance of building permits. Say that again?
Is that with all the other conditions?
Yeah, all the other conditions apply. This is another condition.
Yeah, right,
It's just an additional condition.
correct.
Okay.
Okay, and you're covered on 2 because you're modifying condition number 2, Sean, with, I guess it would be conditional 14 or whatever.
Because it says except as further restricted or
Right,
modified, so,
So you're covered there.
yeah.
Dan, does that make sense? Vote whichever way you want.
Well, there's not a second yet.
And number 5, we're just trying to get the motion or the conditions clarified. Number 5, well, I guess 5A and 14, well, 5A could stand, I mean, 14A, Plan Commission gets to approve architecture, but 5A could still stand for you approving final architecture, I guess that's okay.
So,
Not-
so
not
that would be stricken then. A would be removed. 5A would be removed.
5A would be removed because
Yes,
your condition would be final architectural plans and elevations are submitted to approval by Plan Commission, right?
yeah. The petitioner shall submit, well, revised architectural floor plans, elevations, landscape plan, but we could add the word final, submit revised final.
Final revised, well,
Either works.
final revised. Sorry, guys, but, we can't table it, and then we have to work through the exact conditions, as opposed to, normally we have our conditions and we make our motions.
Anybody establish a letter of credit?
That's a condition. The
condition?
letter of credit's a condition.
How much is it for?
The engineer said that.
Engineer decides.
Yeah.
Well, it says we're supposed to have that before we approve the site plan.
Where does it say that?
Under your condition.
Which one?
It's gotta be acceptable to the village attorney, provided to the village pursuant to the
Right, but that,
plans approved by the plan commission.
right. So you're approving the site plan now, but hypothetically. And so the letter of credit will be based on these plans, which will be, the estimate will be done by the engineer. And the attorney would approve the form and it gets signed by the board.
What number are you reading off of, Sean?
Well, it's not in the conditions, but it's in the number 12 on page 4, letter of credit required.
Right. That's part of your requirement.
That's a requirement, chapter 144-5,
Right.
right?
That's in the ordinances. Right. Okay, are we good on the conditions? Do we know what we're doing? Do we know what the motion is?
I don't have a second.
Do we have a second?
I made the motion, so I
I
can't
know,
second
going
it.
once, going twice. Motion will die from a lack of a second.
I'll second.
Okay, we do have a second. Discussion, everybody understand the motion? I'll start with that, so we know what we're voting on. Any further discussion? Okay, so all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Nay. Nay.
Motion passes.
Motion passes 3-2 with Commissioner Noack and Fortner against. Okay. Off we go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Time is a 49.
Sean's gotta go use the restroom.
Oh, yeah, well, we'll be shuffling here anyway. Yeah, I said. But you have to know it's not. Figured we'd be long tonight.
Try to bring a big box Walmart into Madison.
It wouldn't have been.
Oh.
Especially after they threw out Sam's, huh? Yeah, thank you. Oh, yeah, yeah. Can't be. Okay, let's,
No, just go. Go, Sean.
Okay, we're just getting reloaded. Sorry. Anybody need a break? We probably done for fun. We just take 5 minutes. All right. 5-minute break.
okay. That's a good idea.
Where's your name? So this is gonna go to the board, for the next board meeting.
As is.
Do I put the survey map that the plan commission saw, and then the 3 conditions is,
Yes,
okay,
that's what was approved, the one that we have, not the new one.
okay. But they'll have to meet
It's
all.
gotta be revised, that's gotta look at it.
So when I put it in the board's packet, can I tell them that they're seeing a certified survey map that's not the final?
Well, they have my staff report.
Yeah. And it was with the 3 conditions?
Staff report includes the issues with it.
Yep, okay. Yeah, so that's what I'm gonna put. I'm gonna put the certified survey map that I have, your staff,
Yes.
your updated staff.
Yeah, because it talks about the changes that are.
And then Carl will reiterate to the village board that we don't sign anything until we have
So all
letter from
conditions
you.
are satisfied, yeah.
It was bad. Yeah. Well, I mean, he's more interested in.
Hey, Sean, you said that metal siding issue, 33% thing was a guideline, not,
It is, it said it should be limited to that, so it's not a shall, it's not definitive, it's more of a guideline, but the plan ultimately needs to determine if it's appropriate.
now, we don't have to make that determination necessarily just on his building.
Well, it depends on the architecture of the building, right, because their building's sort of barn, it looks like a barn, it's got the red and the gray thing.
Yeah.
It kind of fits, in my opinion, it kind of fits the style.
I I understand, yeah.
But if it was just a shed, you know, a shed with no articulation on it, just metal siding, maybe that's not appropriate, you know? So it's articulated.
Okay, I was
by-
looking at the 33%, just that alone, you know, rather than aesthetics.
Yeah, but you can't, I don't know if you can look at it by itself.
Well, that's kind of what I was asking, yeah.
Without some, yeah, without the architecture.
And without the landscape. How's it gonna look with the landscape?
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know where that came from, I mean, was Joe his first name? Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Well, you don't want just a box put out there with just metal siding and that's it. Right, right, right. But that whole chapter 144, that's on our to-do list to revisit the landscape plan.
The whole thing, yeah, right. We'll get there and look at it.
There you go, that's easily. I've got that in this week already.
Quick construction. Some of the stalls.
All right, Mr. Schultz. Okay, next up on the agenda, item 4B, conceptual certified survey map for David Schultz for the properties located on Guthrie, which is County U, and National Avenue, County ES. VNT numbers 2017, 985, 986, 987, 988, and 989. Sean, Mr. Schultz, introduce yourself and give your name and address for the record, and then we'll turn it to Sean.
My name is David Schultz, and I live at South 66 West 22470, West National Avenue, and I also own the adjoining property, which is South 66 West 22490, National Avenue.
Sean.
Okay, try to make this as simple as possible. There's 5 properties at the northeast corner of National and Guthrie Road. Most of them are irregularly shaped. They were divided over time, historically before, you know, modern platting and zoning ordinances and so on. And so most of them are legal non-conforming lots, don't conform to the width and shape requirements and the size requirements for the zoning district. And what the petitioner wants to do is combine the 4 smaller properties nearest the intersection into one parcel. There's currently a house there that would be on that combined lot. And then the larger lot, the remainder, the bigger lot, wants to divide into 2 lots. There's already an existing home there that accesses National Avenue, and the second lot further north would access Guthrie Road. And so the reason it's in front of you today is basically conceptually, instead of a final CSM, is a couple issues. One is the 4 lots that are combined at the intersection are still going to be, it's still going to be a legal non-conforming lot. It's zoned A3. A3 requires 2 acres. That won't quite be 2 acres in size. And so that's allowed. We're just not allowed to make things more non-conforming. You can make them less non-conforming even if they don't meet the requirements of the zoning district, but that's a consideration. The other consideration is that one of the larger lot that's gonna be divided, is going to be sort of an L, like a V-shaped lot. And so it's gonna have access on Guthrie and access on National, and it's not a rectangular lot that's normally, required. So our land division ordinance basically says lots shall generally be rectangular, shaped. And so that is not gonna be the case with this lot. It's sort of an odd V-shaped lot. Originally, I suggested to the petitioner, why doesn't he cut off that little leg that accesses with the second home on it, that accesses National Avenue, and combine that with the 4 small parcels that are near the intersection to create a larger lot? It would meet zoning requirements, it would be very close to it. But then there would be 2 homes there that would be combined, and so you have to destroy one of the homes, and that's not something that they're willing to do at this time. And so essentially what is required here is the Plan Commission to kind of give the okay on that irregularly shaped lot that would access both Guthrie and National Avenue, which is kind of a V shape. Karen, do you have the concept on your computer anywhere? You guys have it probably in your packets, right?
Well,
The sketch, the hand sketch that was.
Right, we have
No,
the GIS. So
Yeah, Commissioner Nowak has
Yeah,
that. Yeah, that's essentially what the layout is gonna be in the end.
So he's gonna combine, Mr. Schultz, you own all 5 parcels, right?
Correct.
He's gonna combine 20, the tax keys, ending in 985, 6, 7, and 8, into one parcel.
Right, the ones nearest the right-of-way, the nearest the intersection are all gonna be combined.
Okay.
Again, it's still not the 2 acres that's required by
Still not the 2
zoning.
acres, still not the rectangular shape, but it's certainly,
Well, that one's okay. I mean, that's a regularly shaped lot at the corner.
okay. But it's not the 2 acres.
But it's not 2 acres.
But we have 4
Yeah.
parcels there that are under 2 acres, and they're all different shapes and sizes.
Right, so the benefit here is it's a major cleanup of the mess that was there before. Even if it's still substandard lot, it's still a much better lot and cleaning up the problem with all those lots. That's not the issue though. The issue is that V-shaped lot that's being created is not the other one. Yes, that lot. That's sort of an irregular shaped lot, compared to normally rectangular or pie-shaped lots that are created. And so that essentially, doesn't necessarily need a waiver from the land division ordinance because it says generally rectangular shaped, but it certainly needs your consideration as to whether or not that would be allowed. The other issue that I wanted to point out, if you could bring up the aerial photograph again, Karen. The easternmost house, the house that exists on the largest lot right now, is very close to that west lot line. And that lot line's not proposed to be moved as part of the CSM. And so it would be okay to be maintained where it is as long as there is some distance between it and the lot line. But if, when the survey is done and it shows up that that house is actually over the lot line, that line is gonna have to be adjusted in some way because we wouldn't allow the creation of new lots with houses that are basically hanging over the property line. Yeah, zoom in on that if you could, Karen. Yeah, it may be, and so the essence is that those buildings have to be, even if they're right on the lot line, they need to be on the property. That might have to be adjusted if those buildings are
You
overhanging.
have to go get a survey and redraw.
Well, he's got to do a survey anyways because he's got to do a CSM. But if you find, my point is if you find out when you're doing that it's overhanging, that's gonna have to be adjusted.
Okay, I did get a survey on that triangular shaped one with the 4 pieces.
Yep.
That was done many years ago. That was done in the 70s. But when I got that survey, it was a certified survey, and it did not show either of the buildings overlapping that. So
Okay.
unless that line changes with a new survey, they should be okay.
County did remonument the whole Waukesha County. So when you resurveyed, David, it might affect this. Oh, the monumenting was done like in the 90s.
But all it means is you just need to move that lot line a little bit west to compensate. How many feet of frontage on National?
100 feet?
That may be, but that already, I mean, that lot exists.
Where's the average width on a lot measured?
It's measured across the whole lot.
No, it can't be.
It is. It's an average. It's the average lot width. If you look, it's basically you take a line perpendicular to the depth. You do the depth and it's measured.
How far back from the road?
Let me read. We were just talking about this definition before. It's kind of convoluted, but it is average across the whole thing. Some communities have it back at the setback lines where you take the measurement. That's what I'm used to, but this is a little different. It says, let me just read it if I could. It's lot width minimum average. It says, the mean horizontal distance, so the average horizontal distance measured between side lot lines, perpendicular to the lot depth, and at a point in relation to the depth where the product of the two would produce the minimum required lot area.
Perpendicular to the lot.
Depth. So you draw a line
So
to the,
you'll draw a line from National Avenue going straight, right through the side of the house, and how far? It's gonna hit the lot line on Edgewood, not Edgewood, on Guthrie?
so which lot are we talking, Karen, which one are we talking about the four combined or the leg that comes down on National?
He's talking to the corner lot, I think.
Not the corner lot, no,
Which one?
The big one.
the big one,
Oh, that isn't near
that
Guthrie.
dog leg on the big line.
So yeah, that right there where you have your cursor, yes.
I don't know how we can say that's got a 175-foot average width.
Because the rest of the property in the back counts towards the average width.
Would you allow them to build a house on that portion there, on that dog leg, if there were no house there?
No, but it is an existing house. It's already there.
In either case, it's gonna be non-conforming, right?
Yes, and in any case, it's a non-conforming structure. If you leave it alone, it's worse as you leave it here because it's more of a mess. So we're helping to clean it up by,
Before I read your comments, I made a division there, cutting off that dog leg and developing another lot.
yes, that was my original suggestion.
Someday it should become one lot along with the four on the corner.
Yes, that was my original suggestion. And so, but you can't have two homes on a lot.
This time, but it would still make sense to me to make that lot line,
Yes.
east-west lot line, and cut off that dog leg that comes down to the National Avenue.
We can't do that though, because then we'd be creating, so that lot currently exists as what's the size of that lot, that big one? That's a 6.67 acre lot, right? And so that conforms to zoning. We can't chop that leg off with that home on it now and create a 1 acre lot
Unless we change the zoning,
unless you change the zoning, right?
then the two lots would become conforming, except
They would be conforming if you rezoned them, right? Besides the setbacks, the lots would be conforming,
the homes.
the homes would not be. So,
And then, someday I can see
the plan for the area is business transition, right? So at some point, that corner could become a commercial use at some point. And that was another reason why I was saying, well, it'd be nicer to have a larger, more conforming, regular lot there at the corner. But again, it's the idea is that the two homes, they want to keep the two homes for now. At some point in the future, it may be commercial, 10 years, 20 years.
The one on the smaller lot?
Yeah.
That one is, yeah, her sister lives in it.
But by creating another lot there, even it may not be conforming at this time, but it would be easier to sell it, and combine the two smaller parcels, and then sell the bigger rectangular one north of that.
You're saying combine all the whole corner, get rid of one of the houses, get rid of the smaller house. Too late.
The lot that I would be creating in the back of the larger square. Right, would be, I was hoping to cut at least the 2.5 acres out of it, 250, or 2.55.
Okay, that's what I was wondering, what you're gonna do with that.
Well, I was gonna come off the furthest lot line to the north and come 250 feet. That would create a 250 foot by 490 foot lot, including right of way.
Right, okay.
It'd be 250 by 445 without the right of way, which I believe comes out to 2.55 acres.
Would that be a conforming lot,
I'm just trying to, hang on real quick.
I wouldn't see any problem with that at all.
so long as it's conforming?
Right, yeah, any new, that new lot definitely has to be conforming, and that would be. And that's the reason we can't just chop off that bottom leg and leave it alone with the house, because we'd be making it worse.
What benefit is there to joining all these four properties on the corner, right?
The benefit is to get rid of that irregularly shaped leg that comes down, right? That's one, to make a more regular lot, and make the corner more conducive to a future commercial development potentially.
What do you mean a regularly shaped leg?
That the whole reason I brought this to the plan commission was because the strange V-shaped lot, right? The one that acts as national, nope, not that one. To the right, that one that comes up and then dog legs to the right. That V, that's an irregularly shaped lot, and so that's why.
It is now, right?
Right, that's the big
Yes.
lot.
The way it is.
Yeah.
Yes, but
But
we're,
that also cleans up the Guthrie and National triangle there too, right?
yeah, I mean, I wish I had the can I borrow the?
It doesn't clean up anything but the property lines, which
Yeah.
matter, right?
Yeah.
Well, one of the reasons that I wanted to combine those on the corner was because, first of all, it was suggested to me many, many times when I paid my taxes. I've been paying taxes since 1978 when I bought the property. And the descriptions on that property are overlapping. They don't close. There's all kinds of issues with all
There's-
those little individual
Consistency,
descriptions.
yeah.
There's a gap. There's a whole gap here too that is
And
missing.
so by just making it as one, I mean, the one lot line that would be on the west side would not change, or if it changed, it would change only because of the monument having moved.
Yes, he does have to dedicate right away.
And then the other two sides are bordered by the roadway.
Mhm.
So basically, it would just be a three-sided description instead of,
Right.
instead of a description that's 14 pages long.
That's confusing. It really is.
And-
Right.
And the original deed that I have for that lot, just for information, was 1927. So it tells you how long ago that was cut up.
Wow.
Buy this right-of-way? When they redid National Avenue, did they approach you to buy that right-of-way?
On National and Guthrie,
On National, when they redid National Avenue?
when they redid National Avenue, they said that they wanted to buy the right-of-way.
Right.
And they wanted to take, well, at the time, I had fence, I had trees, I had all kinds of stuff. And they said, well, we're gonna clean all this up, we're gonna get rid of all your brush. And I asked him what brush he was talking about, and he pointed to my 40-foot pine trees. And I was a little bit upset, and I said, well, no, I don't wanna give that up. And he said, well, you have to, because the right-of-way is changing. It used to be 33 foot of right-of-way on National and 33 foot on Guthrie, which made the lot at least somewhat buildable lot. But when they increased it, I was under the impression that it was 60 feet on National for right-of-way and 50 feet on Guthrie. Am I correct in that or not?
I thought it was
But
50 and
I don't know off the top of my, I can do a measurement here, but in any case, if you do this CSM, you'll have to dedicate the right of way as part of it.
Well, yeah, eventually I gave in to selling it because I was trying to avoid doing it. And when they redid National Avenue, I mean, there's stories that I don't want to spend all night here, but bottom line is I was threatened with eminent domain and they were going to take it and I would have no choice anyway.
So this is wrong, Sean.
So I basically just
Right-of-way doesn't go
gave
into
in.
that. These lots don't go into the right-of-way.
What they did to that corner lot is, if you wanted to put something on that lot, you could maybe put a bookcase on it if you wanted to go by the setbacks. Seriously, if you stay 25 feet off the lot line and you stay 50 feet from Guthrie and 60 feet from National, plus your setback of 50 foot, you're left with basically nothing. That lot is really not worth much.
Right, unless it was
My
combined.
intent- My intent and the wife's
Unless it was
intent
combined with
all
that
the
lake.
time was that when this property would be sold, it would be sold all together, that triangle and that dog leg like you had talked about. It would all be sold as one, because if I'm not mistaken, I can't sell that corner lot anyway.
You can sell it, sure.
Well, it's I adjoin,
Right.
yeah,
Well-
well, there's the other thing, who would wanna buy it?
If it's,
Because it's existing.
because it's substandard and it's owned by the adjacent property, you have some, you know,
Well, our intent was, like I said, the intent was on our part that we would sell that all together.
right. And you're adamant about tearing down the smaller house at this point.
Yeah, well, yes.
Is this all or nothing? In other words, this whole thing goes together, or? I look at this as like, okay, you're gonna combine the corner, the quarter 4 lots, and then you want to subdivide the larger lot. To me, that's two things, is it all together?
My,
All or nothing,
my,
or
in-
what?
my focus is to divide the larger lot. If we do not combine the corner and make that into one, that's, to me, of no consequence.
Yours is primarily the large, subdividing is large.
My primary concern is if I can cut that 250 by 490-foot piece off the larger lot. That is my concern. As far as the combination of the corner, if that doesn't happen, that to me is no concern. That just means I'll keep paying the taxes with 5 tax bills or 4 tax bills.
But Dave, when he came in, he wanted to at least bring this to your attention of what he's dealing with. So we got,
But that's not my focus.
Right.
The focus
Well, that's
is
why
the
I asked.
division.
But that would be a benefit to everybody to have that cleaned up.
Yeah, I'm not objecting to cleaning that up, I just
No,
wanted to
I'm
see if
just
it was,
saying.
if these were tied together somehow, and because I look at it, it's like, well, they're really not tied together, and if they were tied together, well, if you had to move the property line, then they would be tied together because you'd have to redraw the property line,
Okay.
right, because your garage is overhanging it or something.
If it moves.
If it does, yeah,
If the line moves.
right.
There is a chance. I think, if I'm not mistaken, on the old survey, or on the survey, I believe there was approximately 5 to 6 feet to the garage.
Yeah, right.
I see no problem with dividing that rectangular lot to the north off at all. I guess I'd like to see the rest of it all combined together at some time.
Right, that would be the best case scenario, but I don't know how we tie that to the approval.
We're not benefiting at all by doing that, and I'm not sure you're benefiting, but
So,
make one nice lot in the future there on that corner.
right, an actually usable lot for something.
Yeah, but there'd be 2 houses on it.
There'll be 2 houses, but again, at some point, it could be commercial development at some point in the future.
When you talk about smaller house, are you talking the house on the smaller lot?
Yeah.
It's a 2-story house, 4 bedroom, well, 3 bedrooms, but 3 bedrooms with a small den. It was built, again, like I said, the deed I have is from 1927, so
Yeah.
that tells you how long it's been there. So,
It looks like on the GIS, there's some buildings or something on the larger lot. What are
Oh,
those
yeah.
buildings?
In the back, the very north,
The very northeast, it looks like there's something, but then there's also, looks like there's some buildings or something. Yeah, on
the big lot.
the big lot.
on the very north end in the center,
Yeah,
that's a clump of trees.
Not
to
that.
the right
not
of that, to the east of that.
It's right there. What's going on right
Oh,
there?
that right there,
Yeah.
that's just a raised garden bed.
Oh,
Okay,
That's an open top raised garden bed. And what you're seeing next to it is just the rack that I grew my beans on.
Looks like you had
Wow.
your boat back there.
Yeah, well, that has to go. I've been trying.
Oh,
to do
okay.
that. That's-
that's what I was wondering.
Oh,
That's
on
a
the far
boat?
on the far right?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah. there's a boat parked on the grass.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is just conceptual, obviously, so. He's just looking for direction on basically the creation of that V-shaped lot to split off that one for, for his daughter.
But
Yeah,
it's-
I'm just,
It's already a V shape.
It is a V-shape, but
So you're really not making things any worse there.
it's not necessarily worse, but it's more irregular because it's less usable, it's smaller.
But it's still,
Opportunity to correct something like this, I think that's.
yeah, but that's not up for us. That's up to the owner, right?
Willing to do it at this time,
Yeah.
or we're not willing to do it at this time, maybe the future's be a better opportunity, somebody may come and buy both of them homes and put something on that corner.
But couldn't they do that? Couldn't they do that whether, I suppose maybe that's your point, Dan, whether they could do that, hypothetical buyer, could do that whether those 4 smaller lots were combined or not? But I would agree a buyer would want to come in and buy those 4 lots all at once. I don't see any problem with combining any of those. I don't understand what the rationale would be to oppose that as a village.
Right, that's my sentiment too. It'll be still non-conforming, but you can make some sense of it.
There's 4 non-conforming lots and now there's 1 non-conforming lot.
To me, that sounds like a step forward.
But also some of the setback issues are cleaned up. There's a gap in there it's all in error. It's completely inaccurate. Who knows?
You're gonna get a survey in there, you're gonna mark the lot lines once and for all.
The right-of-way gets dedicated if it's not already. I mean, the GIS shows it is not dedicated. The GIS shows the property lines to the center line of the roadway, but,
Because when the county came and redid National Ave, if you didn't sell it, they would do eminent domain.
oh,
Is that-
eventually I did have to sell it.
Yeah.
I said I caved in and I sold it.
so it's not accurately represented, but.
Yeah,
Didn't just take it.
Well, they gotta pay you for it. They don't just
Right.
take it.
Right,
They buy it.
right, they bought it.
So does everyone have any other comments on the proposal?
And the subdivided lot to the north is a legal.
Those are both, yeah,
Under zoning and everything, so they're
Yeah.
gonna be.
they're both legal lots. Both the larger lots are legal. One is just doesn't really conform to the land division ordinance in the sense that they're supposed to be generally rectangular or pie-shaped.
Is there any issue with the access on Guthrie to that far north lot?
That far north lot, they'll have to get access from, when the certified survey map happens, it comes in. They're gonna need to be approval from the county, yeah.
Okay.
I have not talked to anyone yet. All I can say is that if you go further down the line, or if you look at the plat survey of the land, this original land was 20 acres, and they cut off 200 feet, and they cut off 100 feet, and they cut off, 300 feet all the way coming up the line. Basically, what I'd be doing is cutting another 250 feet off.
Oh, when you go north on.
When you go north, correct. And all those are accessing Guthrie Road,
Oh,
as
yeah.
well as all the properties that are on the other side of Guthrie,
Yeah, both sides.
both sides.
When you say cutting, you mean selling off?
They divided the land, they just kept splitting it.
Donna, what is that, line up there
This is what
on the northwest corner of this large parcel?
Thank you.
I mean, my description is actually this minus that one.
That is.
That is,
We're just trying to understand.
so they take quite a bit of land along Guthrie.
He said it's already taken. He said it's already been acquired. Has Guthrie been acquired or no? Just National? Okay. So yeah, Guthrie would be,
I'd have to look back on the papers, but I thought they did.
You gotta clean it up first.
So that parcel would be
Sure looks that way with
250 by
GIS.
245.
Both sides.
right. The minimum width requirement's 175 feet.
No, it'd be 250 by 445.
They cut off those lots. Maybe that's when they.
445.
Yeah, 445. That's right.
445.
That's right.
So, let's see. Yeah, let's just see.
I will make
what
a
are we
motion.
doing? Staff
No-
review-
no
this is
motions required.
conceptual- Yeah, it's a concept,
Pardon me?
No motion.
no motion, this is
No motion on
conceptual
this.
review only.
Oh,
Plan commission should provide petitioner with direction on land division, on his land division request. It's only direction, no formal action, no
doesn't
motion.
need any, okay,
So,
works.
so the direction we're gonna give petitioner is to go, proceed and combine your 4 lots
Okay.
and, proceed with, what, a conceptual? we're
A
gonna
final CSM.
Trying to see CSM to, you know, on the north, creating that second lot to the north at those approximate dimensions, right,
Yeah.
John?
Yep. And if you have to move the lot line between the
Right?
smaller parcel and the other one to make sure that your house and your accessory building is all on one lot.
I do have one question. For the CSM now, do I have to have both of them surveyed or just the larger lots? surveyed?
All of it surveyed.
Because the smaller one was surveyed once before, that's. the
Yeah, but that,
issue.
again, that was from the 70s, you said.
Right,
And the monuments have changed. The whole thing is, nothing's going to line up.
but when I get the larger lot surveyed, that lot line is going to be the border.
It's going to be the eastern border, but we need to have,
The roads are
the
other
right,
borders.
the right-of-way has to be surveyed as well.
The right-of-way's gotta be on that certified survey.
Yeah,
map.
it's all got to be shown. You have to show, you have to show that dedicated right-of-way with a surveyed line.
Okay, well, my point is, do I need to have all those small little internal pieces also?
No, no, we
or
don't care
just
about
the three?
the boundary, the
Okay,
boundary.
Just the boundary.
Yes,
That's
just the boundary.
Boundary, so you're gonna end up with 3 lots at the end of this, right?
Correct.
And just the
Looking for a
boundaries, yes,
Survey of those 3 the
Yes.
boundaries of those 3 lots,
yes,
Okay,
right?
okay.
that's right.
Dave, call me tomorrow and I'll either email to you or Carla all the requirements of the certified survey map, so when you go to your surveyor, he or she knows what we need.
Okay. Very
Sound good?
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Too late.
It's too late. Thanks, John. All right.
Next.
Mr. Hine,
Yeah.
you're up next.
So-
Please state your name and address for the record.
Okay, I'm Craig Hine. The property located is South 92 West 27720 Edgewood Avenue, McGuanago. Yeah, I don't know.
I was going to suggest that maybe the petitioner just give an overview of what you're thinking, where you've been, a little bit of a history, and then I can provide some information on what's going to, in my staff report, basically what it would take to get from where we are to where we need to
Yeah.
be.
I'd like to address the reasoning for the irregular boundaries that are on there right now. I built the golf course in 1997. I opened in 99, the driving range, and then 2000 was the golf course, and I ran it, I think, 6 years roughly. And I never made a profit on it. So in my attempts to keep the golf course running, I annexed a portion of the property to McGuanago to try to do a subdivision, and then I just never wanted to close the golf course. I worked too hard for it, and even though it wasn't making a profit, I still didn't want to, bulldoze it. So I didn't want any part of the golf course in McGuanago, so the shape was made kind of wrapped around the golf course so I could keep operating it. And then we had decided later to do the stormwater, so that's why that irregular shape goes to the north around the irrigation pond. So we wanted to do the stormwater, get that all done and never have to deal with that again, so that's why that shape happened. So right now, I would like to clean up my mess and basically do a land exchange with McGuanago, straighten up the borders, and then just allow for better traffic flow through the property. I mean, right now it would be, basically cul-de-sacs everywhere. hopefully by working this agreement out with McGuanago, then we could have access from the south to the north and have another entrance to National Avenue, which, you know, I think we all know what Edgewood and National is like, that intersection. So to have another one with a better sight line would be I think it's a needed thing for the area, you know, just for everybody that lives in that area. So, and the other thing too is I'm intending on selling the property that's located in McGuanago as soon as I can. So, this would be, you know, just the best opportunity to do it. Once I sell it, who knows what the new owner, the developer, is going to want to do with it. But I'd like to clean this up first, if we could, and then I just thought I would show the overall plan with what I would like to do with the remaining part that's in Vernon, you know, as far as doing duplex lots. I had, I've been working with McGuanago for 15 years, you know, and they've been telling me this is gonna be, the entire property will become McGuanago. They already know it, they've agreed on it and everything, and obviously I was misinformed. So they, you know, they did a sewer lift station for the property, and then they granted me medium to high density multifamily on the entire property. So what I'm asking is to do, continue on with the multifamily, but nowhere near what the density that they were saying. We just couldn't do it without sewer anyway, but I just think doing duplex lots, you know, some of them, you know, will be condos. I don't know how, I don't really want to get too far as far as, you know, what'll actually be built there, but I just like to just see if it's possible that we could do this land exchange, what you guys think about that. And I know the relationship with McGuanago isn't very good, so I don't know what your thoughts are, you know, if this is even a possibility or.
What would the land exchange be? I can't follow it. I mean, I can follow the GIS. Well,
Can you show the one where it shows the border?
Can you bring up the?
even if you took the
ortho?
GIS and took a marker and marked it on the GIS, it would be helpful.
Yeah.
Is any,
Ortho photo, the aerial.
Yeah. That's, yeah, that was, and then do you have the other one, where it shows the overall plan of the entire property?
So would all of these buildings be in McGuanago on the bottom here?
Yeah, this would remain in McGuanago, and then that area, this part here, this area here around the pond would be Vernon. So I'd basically be chopping this off. This would go back then into Vernon, so this would make a nice line, and then this area that's in Vernon would become McGuanago, so we'd follow this all the way through. That way this road can go all the way through and connect.
So this proposal would be McGuanago.
Yeah, right, so we'd be basically exchanging this land for this land.
Okay, and this is a single family lot here.
That's a single family lot.
And what about the lot across the street there?
That's single family.
That's Vernon also.
There's, yeah, exactly, yeah, there's two in Vernon, and then the rest are McGuanago.
How would we get those property owners to agree to go to McGuanago?
there's absolutely no way they're going to.
No, I
I
actually,
sat in each one of them's living rooms. They're
Yeah.
not doing it.
I was under the impression that once, you're both villages, that you could strike up a border agreement and create islands, that it was legal. I know it's not legal when it was a town and a village, but once you have this is what my understanding was, that it's allowable to create islands, unless I was misinformed.
I don't know the legalities of creating islands. The better question there is, even if it's legal, why would we want to do it?
Well, it basically already does exist.
And why does it exist?
Well, there's a portion of McGuanago, you know, on either side. It's surrounded by McGuanago.
And why? Because they annexed into McWanago. This is all Vernon. This
Yeah.
all was Vernon in the beginning.
Right,
So it's all created by annexations by the property owners.
right.
And I still don't understand, Sean, could you, I still don't understand what's coming back to Vernon other than a retention pond? And what's going to McWanago?
Yeah, I don't know,
Yeah, right.
Like, so what? So what does that benefit us? Okay, what's going to
Well,
McWanago?
I thought the benefit would be getting the roadway from McGuanago going north and then connecting to National Avenue.
Well, that can be done without it going to McWanago.
Well, there's nothing that says, like, when I sell that to a developer, that they're gonna be forced to put access to the property that's in Vernon. They can do whatever they want with that. That's what I was just saying, that we could have another access point if we work together on it, to run from the north to the south, so that people that don't wanna go up to Edgewood and National don't have to go through. Now they can cut through that property and go all the way, now that there's storage units there, that's a public road there, so they can access that. So,
In my opinion, Craig, I think you would be doing a disservice to yourself
yeah,
by running additional traffic through your parcel that you want to develop, rather than having that go up Edgewood. Maybe they need some stoplights or something up on Edgewood.
that roadway on Edgewood though, isn't that intended to, what is it? It's a stub road, intends to connect to something in the future.
What do you?
Van Buren Drive? No, to the north. It's to the west of those storage units. Yeah. That's coming through.
And that's an
Oh, is that
access
not what
point?
you're referring to, Dan? I'm sorry.
Name of it, Van Buren?
That's what it says, Van
that's what
Buren
it's
Drive.
called, right?
Does that continue across the road at Van Buren?
No, across the road it's not. Hidden Lakes Drive.
Something.
Yeah.
Right,
Well, that
yeah.
could have been, that should be the same street.
Well, one's in Vernon and one's in McWanago.
Yeah.
Right. At any rate, that's intended, the Van Buren Drive is in McWanago, but looks like it's intended to extend onto this property. Craig, do you have a sense of, do you know the number of acres that's gonna go from one village to the other? Do you know who's coming out ahead on this?
It's just under 2 acres that Vernon would be giving up, so that's a negative on this.
So
proposal.
once the
Yeah,
border's realigned,
yeah.
Vernon's gonna lose 2 more acres. That's what you're saying?
I think it's less than 2, but I just did this proposal knowing that, fully improved road it's cost prohibitive if you don't
Have
develop
development on
both
both
sides
sides.
of the road, and that's why I drew this up, knowing that a developer, if he looks at it, if I don't have lots on both sides, I can't even put a road in, so that.
Does those other properties have to be annexed? I know you're talking about islands. Is there no way to work it so that you're not creating islands and then there's no
There is
issue
a
with this?
way, if it's called an umbilical cord, which, I don't know how it works as far as along the road frontage, but what I planned on doing is, because there's a 30-foot separation between it's hard to explain right now, but, the road, my driveway would have to be aligned with Red Fox Run, which is in McGuanago. So that leaves a 30-foot wide strip between my property and the apartments to the north,
Mhm.
the new apartments. So that would remain in Vernon, so that would basically connect to Edgewood Avenue. And if you left the strip along Edgewood Avenue to connect to the properties remaining in Vernon, technically that's still Vernon. So that's been done. Yeah, I was actually I was told by an attorney that that's no longer, it doesn't matter once you're both villages or cities.
Right. If annexation's not involved, no one's annexing from another, it's an agreement to exchange
Yeah,
properties.
this is like kind of like a border agreement, just on my property is what it ends up being.
Is that just some kind of a trail you've got there?
Pardon?
Is that some kind of just a trail that goes that little piece that dumps onto Edgewood across from Red Fox Run?
Yeah, there's just a driveway there now, but,
Oh, it's just a driveway?
yeah.
It's your driveway, directly across Red Fox Run. It's just a
Yeah,
driveway.
it's not directly across, it's off, well, it's off a little bit.
It's jutted off.
Yeah, right, so that's what they would, if they put a road in, they would have it directly lined up, so there'd be a 30-foot strip that, you know. But, I just wanted to try to clean up the whole jagged borders. That was my main concern, because I feel like I made that mess and I wanted to clean it up, and I thought I wanted to see if you guys would be willing to do it, and, you know, if it's, I understand your concerns on it.
So,
Guess I would be all for that,
if I may just address my staff report, just, there's a bunch of dominoes that have to fall for this to happen. Obviously, the attachment, detachment between the villages is, you know, a big thing. Our plan for this is still recreational. I'm assuming it was left over from when it was still a golf course.
Right, yeah.
The plan has to be changed to probably low-density residential. So that's the comp plan. The property's zoned RRD5, which requires 5 acres of land per dwelling unit. That would have to be modified, so you need a comp plan change. You need a rezoning. If you recall, the last time we amended our zoning ordinance, we took out the multifamily uses, so that's no longer even an option unless the zoning ordinance is amended to add back in multifamily as a conditional use. Maybe we limit it just to duplexes, and we put certain conditions on there to make sure it's a nice development. So that has to happen, and then finally it would be a subdivision plat that would be part of this. So it's the boundary adjustment, comp plan change, rezoning, and amendment to the zoning ordinance, and then finally the subdivision plat. So it's complicated. There's a lot of steps here for this one.
Dan, what do they call it, detached condos?
These would be attached.
No, but there is a term.
There is detached condos.
Detached condos, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they're like a single family, but it's detached, but it's considered a condo.
Single family.
proposing 2 units per building, right?
Doubles for you?
Side by side.
Yeah, side by side, yeah, the main, reason for that is a lot of my property, you wouldn't be able to build basements because it's a perched water table. So with that line, there's a big market for stairless, ranch-style condos. And they don't want to go down in the basement, so there's actually people that would buy this, you know, and it's pretty much, it's needed in a lot of communities. I mean, I know banks are pretty much bending over backwards to loan money for it. That's, you know, there's a need for it. And this property with the mixed use that it surrounds it, you know, it really, it isn't like we're putting this out in the middle and single family everywhere around it. I got storage units, apartments, and condos, you know, wrapped right around me. So I don't think it's a huge stretch to go with duplex lots on it. And then just, you know, for the fact that it's, you know, we can get away with not having basements on a majority of them. So, you know, you can put basements on the higher elevated ones, but there's a lot of it that we can't, so.
But you need, to do that though, do you even need a border adjustment to do that?
Pardon?
Do you need a border adjustment to?
No, I don't. No, I just, this was just an idea. I just thought, you know, I don't think this is, sitting here right now, I get the feel that you guys aren't for it, and you know, I don't have, much, reasoning why I could talk you into it. It's just, it's either way. If you don't want it, that's fine. I'll just, pursue, you know, another direction, but, I really wanted to try to clean up the mess, that's all. I just,
Well, any border adjustment is approval by both boards and
Yeah.
by a three-fourths supermajority vote.
mhm.
So on a 5-person board, that's 4, and on a 7-person board, which is what McGuanago has, it's 6. So 2 dissenters, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Second, these things, it's not gonna be easy to do it.
Yeah.
I know, first,
Right.
we had a meeting,
Yeah, I know.
your property came up,
Yeah,
they haven't talked to us since that meeting.
right.
So it's been 7 months.
Yeah.
So, to me, they're extremely difficult to work with. If they're even, most of the time, they don't even want to work with you at all, let alone work with. They don't want to work with us at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, they got some difficult personalities there. I don't know that our taxpayers would want to be paying attorney's fees to do this, because most of them would say, well, why are we doing it?
Yeah.
And if it benefits that individual property owner, you know, in Vernon, we always say that's a chargeback. So I just see a lot of problems with that. And then the border adjustment itself, it's got to be fair to both sides, otherwise it's not going to work.
Right, yeah.
So if McGuanago's all for it, I got to think to myself, why? Because it benefits them.
Somebody would have to work out something that benefits both sides.
Both sides.
I mean, we may not be able to work with them, but maybe some developer
Yeah.
could reason with both boards or.
I
I
just,
don't know about that. You know, we did have a developer in here who wanted to lay pipe in our, water pipe in our ditch. And, we said, well, we should talk to McGuanago about that. We weren't necessarily opposed to it. McGuanago refused to even talk to us about it. I asked them about it, and they said, well, that was a private developer making a request. In other words, they don't treat private developers very well over there either, from what I gather. So yeah, that's, you know, to me, the border adjustment is very problematic. Now, your particular proposal, I think Sean's outlined, you know, everything. Forget about the border adjustment, Sean, you still had a long list of things that we'd have to go through. And I do understand the side-by-sides are very popular.
yeah,
right now.
so I think I'll just drop that border exchange. I mean, it's just, there's, you know, yeah, they're for it, of course. Like he says, they're gonna benefit it, so that's their for it. They even offered to plow the road, so that would be in Vernon.
they're for the development.
The exchange?
Exchange.
Oh, yeah,
The exchange they're for?
yep.
Well,
Why would we oppose it?
why would we oppose it? Because they're for it. What do you, you know?
They're for it because they're getting more land.
Right, and the land that we're getting is a stormwater retention, no tax base. And what they're getting is gonna get developed, more tax base. And that's why they're for it.
Yeah, I just thought,
You know, if we were gonna fix the whole border, sure, and your property was part of it, sure. We'd entertain discussions, but I just don't see it going very far.
yeah. I just thought that we would, you would generate more tax base if we can access more of my property, you know, with the road coming out of McGuanago. Because right now, to try to build a road,
The road coming out of McGuanago, which one? That would be that Van Buren one?
the one from the south,
Oh, Cardinal
yeah,
Lane.
yeah. So that would go in.
But that's already part in Village of Waquanago, isn't it? Cardinal
Right,
Lane stubs right into it, right?
But then there's the parcel that I'm gonna be selling, and I wanted to guarantee that we got a road through there to go to the most highly developable part of my property. So that we could access that. Right now, to try to build a road from Edgewood Avenue to go all the way around the north side of the pond, I don't think I get a developer to even buy the land now. Just, the only other option is if we can get access from, that north by the storage units, and I don't know if I can or not, if.
Oh, that Van Buren.
Van
That's the
Buren.
shortest way in, right?
Yeah, I don't know if can they block me from connecting to that?
It looks like the road's, well, I don't know if it is dedicated, maybe. Yeah, it looks dedicated. If it's an existing road and the road extends to the property, then, you know.
Yeah, Sean, can we block Big Bend from connecting into our cul-de-sacs? Or Waquanago? We can't block that. Can we?
If the,
They're public roads.
well, they still need you still need an access permit from them.
Right.
You need a permit to connect to the road. So that is, you know, they do have to issue that.
So that's the part I was worried about, is what if I don't get access from that road, then, you know, to try to build a road all the way around the pond to get up to the highest developable part. It's just,
Oh, from Edgewood, you mean?
yeah.
From,
right,
I get what
yeah.
you're saying now.
So that's what I was
Yeah.
trying to do, is work something out that they'll automatically say, yeah, sure, we'll get you, you can put access through here, you know, all the way through, if we do this land agreement, you know.
You own that property where your driveway is now?
Yeah, yeah, I
How
bought the,
wide is that?
I actually bought the whole, the 2 acres there that's out in front too, so
That
it's,
991003?
yeah,
You own that.
yeah, that's,
So you could put a driveway in or a road in through there?
yeah, oh yeah,
Well, that's what I was suggesting before.
yeah. But it's
How many
just
acres is the total, the whole?
51 altogether.
But your point on that, Craig, would be, yeah, you could come off of Edgewood, and you own that 2 acres in front, so you have plenty of room to build a road that can be dedicated.
Yeah,
But then once you hit, you know, the bigger part of your property, you really need to get over to the east,
right,
the northeast.
Yep.
Because of the topography, right?
yeah,
And it would be more cost effective, let's say, if you came in off of Van Buren Drive or
Cardinal Lane,
Cardinal.
yeah.
But don't you own that there? That parcel just north of Cardinal Lane right now?
I do, but that's in the village of McGuanago, and that's, I'm gonna sell that as soon as I can. I just wanted to wait and see what happened here. If there's not gonna be any, land exchange, then I'm gonna put it up for sale in a couple of weeks, just, and then,
But in connection with that sale, could you cause that Cardinal Lane to be extended to your property in Vernon?
I don't know if I can force that or not, you know, unless I have,
Well-
write it up with whoever I sell it to, that they,
You can force it by contract.
I can.
Right.
Okay, all right.
Well, sure, you know. It might hold up your sale.
Yeah. And then McGuanago would have to agree to it, of course.
Sure, I mean, whoever buys it, or if you developed it, well, it's just like here at this plan commission, you come in with a certified survey map and carve out the lots, Sean, and extend the road and, you know, all of that. They're gonna require you to do all of that, just like we would
Yeah.
for your side-by-side.
What was the purpose of this bulb over here?
That was just a temporary cul-de-sac.
Which bulb are you pointing to,
Where are you,
Dan?
Dan?
Yeah, I wish that wasn't there.
Oh, the bulb of their, on the annexation, that's just goofy to me too.
That-
Anticipating that was a cul-de-sac.
Oh,
but
here,
then
yeah.
McQuanago would own the cul-de-sac
Yep,
and the homes would be in Vernon.
that's right, exactly.
How crazy is that?
It is crazy, and then the whole thing is that I can't sell that, like, we can't parcel that off because it becomes landlocked. To actually, you know, even though if it was in or McGuanago, and have it as a usable part of a Vernon lot, you can't even do it, it's landlocked.
You wouldn't sell this parcel that's in McGuanago without reconfiguring the border, would you?
I don't have any option. I mean, if you guys don't wanna do the,
Well, you don't need a border you can have the same lot, same piece of property in two different communities.
you can't, unless, it has to have road access. So if I try to square that thing off anyway, anything that's left outside of that has to have a certain amount of frontage. So I can't just, you know, shave it off. I tried doing, you know, just tried to figure out a way to do that, and I hired an engineer, and he had no idea what I was talking about, just to try to make something legal, you know. So, it's a mess.
Put up a par 3 golf course in back.
Tried that, Jake.
Hmm?
He tried that.
With a driving range.
Well, that was a regular golf course, though, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, it was a pitching
it
putt.
was a
sure.
long par 3.
Yeah.
I mean, only one person, to my knowledge, actually parred that thing, so.
I mean, the parcel shape is kind of a mess, but it's not like it's an unusable parcel.
Yeah,
I mean, you can still develop it. There'll just be some inefficient corners to it that
Right,
aren't
yeah.
gonna have any value, right? So
Right.
you know, it can still be developed.
yeah. And then, the whole thing is, you can't, I can't sell that, like, we can't parcel that off anyway. Anything that's left outside of that has to have a certain amount of frontage. So I
farmland and was making a little fortune all year long, or all spring and summer and fall. But it was a small par three.
I wish that was my case. I mean, it was every year I lost more and more money. I got to the point where how long can I go to my job before they start paying me, you know? It's just-
Well, and these road extensions, you know, if McWanago was a good neighbor, they'd extend those roads in a coordinated way. This shouldn't even be an issue for you. But just knowing how they treated the guys
They
at
just
Ogden,
didn't like us becoming a village, Carl.
they don't like me either, but that's setting that aside.
Land exchange go to the Village of McGuanago's Board or Plan Commission?
No, I just met with their planner
Okay.
and then just got feedback through him, so.
Their planner or their administrator or both?
Well, I personally talked to the planner and then he talked to the administrator and told me what he told, you know, relayed the message, so I didn't talk to him about this at all, personally, but, yeah. So, as far as doing, duplex lots, I mean, you had mentioned, Karen, that was, you could do conditional use, or is that something that's,
We'd have to reestablish it as a conditional use in the ordinance. We have to modify our zoning ordinance to add it in as a conditional use before you can
Okay.
do it. So you need a comp plan amendment, you need a rezoning, you need to amend the zoning ordinance, and then you need a subdivision.
okay, all right.
So, yeah, it makes sense in my opinion for that.
Sure, that's a transitional use, as pointed out. You've got apartments, condos, and mini warehouses.
Yeah, beautiful mini
Beautiful,
warehouse.
yeah.
Oh, they're just.
The gateway to McWanago, mini warehouses.
Exactly what, that's how I put it too. Welcome to McGuanago. I know, back in '96 you guys did, when I bought the land.
I've been here since 2013. There has been at least 7 different developers, and the Plan Commission
Yeah.
turned it down every time.
Hmm.
Every time. So they annexed to the Village of McGuanago, and guess what's there?
Oh, those mini warehouses rent out quickly, I think.
Me neither.
There's a few spaces. I don't know. I don't really see anybody either.
I was amazed they put up so many all at one time.
They wanted to put up 1,100 there.
Whoa.
That was his first shot at it, and then came back with 300 with an assisted living, and then I go to the meeting and it's the assisted living's out, they wanted outside storage on the remainder. I mean, I says, you wanna have, you know, rusted boats, boat trailers and all that stuff, and blue tarps blowing in the wind, and, you know, so. They actually approved it. They said, we'll give you 1 year. If you have more than 25 complaints, then we'll relook at it. They're gonna get 25 complaints an hour.
Hey, they complained to me.
Did they?
Yeah.
Oh, they thought it was Vernon, right?
Yeah, they thought it was
Oh,
Vernon.
yeah, our residents were really upset, really upset.
So, so my direction would be to, well, I guess what I'll have to do is make sure that I can get that road through, you know, from the south, and that way then I can come up with a plan as far as
Yeah.
a road map through it, yeah, okay.
Well, and you should probably figure that out before you sell the property, don't you think?
Yeah,
Well, like you said, Carol, that would have to be in the contract to sell that property.
yeah.
Right, because otherwise you only have one, your 51 acres has got one access point right now, doesn't it?
Cardinal Lane, yeah.
Oh, yeah, Cardinal Lane, that's right. 3, right, Van Buren, Cardinal, and
Van Buren, yeah,
your driveway stub off.
right, yeah.
Is that wide enough for a road?
No, not yet, but he owns the property there.
Oh, okay,
He
yeah.
can make it wide enough, yeah.
It was, originally it was a lot not abutting a public road, but it was 66 feet wide is what we ended up doing it, so I got approval for that. And then I bought it was an additional 2.3 acres, like 3 or 4 years later, so I got all the frontage I need now, so.
it's a nice piece of property. It's too bad part of it's in the village of McWanago.
Yeah. If the golf course would've made me millions of dollars, we wouldn't be sitting here right now. Damn Tiger Woods, he didn't wanna show up.
He can't now.
No, he can't.
Yeah. I think if you get Tony Romo, you'd probably get more people,
Yeah.
actually, now. Or JJ, yeah.
So, if I don't know if I wanna try to take another swing at it, but if we did do a different border exchange where you guys would benefit in land,
Land and future development, that's true, you know.
yeah, like you say, it's the area that you'd be getting back is, you know, it's eventually gonna be stormwater. You know, I plan on digging a big lake down there if you know, if I sold the lowest area of the property, there's just a little bit of wetland area in it, but I could actually raise it up, you know, 3 feet, put in frost walls and build, you know, ranch style condos without basements, and then we'd have a nice lake with a sandy beach.
For your condo development.
Pardon?
For your condo development.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
right. Yeah. Just have a big neighborhood park, you know, that nobody owns right up to the water, and have a walking path all the way around it, and everybody gets to enjoy it.
Another hidden lake.
So, it won't be hidden though. This'll- yeah, so. All right,
Okay,
yeah, well,
Craig,
thank
got a
you
lot
for
of
your
work
time.
in front of you.
Yeah, I gotta, exactly, so, okay.
Interesting. Ideally, it would be nice to have a loop, you know, that goes all the way around the pond with 3 connections to that loop.
Sure.
That property in Big Bend that did that, is that what kind of a pond, is that a?
That's the old gravel pit.
It's gravel, it is a what they call them, yeah. But the landfill, the body of water becomes, they call it but it becomes, now it's a nice lake that they're all built around, so.
What are you referring to, Lake Park?
Yeah.
That's not an old gravel pit.
Um,
That's a new gravel pit.
yeah, they have a name for that body of water though.
They gravelled it and made a lake. And they put homes around it and
Yeah,
failed to
yeah.
disclose that they had environmental contamination next door, and they sold the lots.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Any-
it's not
any
an old
guess?
one, it's a new one. They just
Any-
built it.
How many acres is that? Does anybody know?
Not on the agenda, but Sadie. Okay, let's keep going. Number 5. Sean?
What's number 5?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Number 5, discussion of Village of Vernon shoreline zoning, including shoreline zoning overlay district and a shoreline wetland zoning ordinance, and to amend the Village of Vernon zoning map. And then number 6 is a recommendation to the village board to set a public hearing date.
Okay.
You've been working on it.
So we did, and we talked about this last month. I introduced 2 things to you. One was the overlay district, shoreline zoning overlay district, which is just like the environmental corridor overlay district or the high groundwater overlay district. It goes in our code, and it simply is, it regulates the 300-foot and 1,000-foot buffers from streams, lakes, ponds, rivers. And essentially what it does is it regulates setbacks from the water. So it requires at least 75-foot setback from the ordinary high water mark. And it also regulates vegetation and what you can do with the vegetation near the water line. So changes that I made since last time, simply, if you go to page, so if you're looking at the document the 300-blank Shoreland Zoning Overlay District, SHO. If you have that,
What page?
they're not numbered, but it's the third page where it says setbacks from water. So the first part is not new. All buildings and structures shall be set back at least 75 feet from the ordinary high water mark, except as follows. The discussion that we had last time is that we wanted to incorporate some exceptions for setbacks, similar to what the county has, but maybe not as complicated. And so that's what these are. And so all structures have to be at least 75 feet from the water. There's some exceptions for structures that are very small, 200 square feet, open on all sides, like a deck or a patio or something that would be potentially raised, gazebo, for instance, that's near the water, as long as it's at least 35 feet from the water's edge. And so that's the first exception. Second exception would be a single stairway rail system for handicap accessible, a walkway. So that would be an exception. And again, this language is straight from the county's ordinance in terms of the way it's constructed. Utility transmission distribution lines, so basically, essentially utilities are accepted. Letter D on the next page, devices or systems used to treat runoff from impervious surfaces, meaning this is just not just a pond, but any structure or device that would be associated with the stormwater pond would be allowed. And there's also then an exception here for setback averaging. So if you have houses on both sides of you, so if you have a house on the west side and the east side or whatever happens to be, and they're located within 250 feet, the structures are located within 250 feet of the structure on the house, the residence that we're talking about, and then both of those adjacent structures are within that 75-foot buffer, you can average the setback between them for your new house. So that's allowed. So these are not going to be, these are going to be few and far between for us. There's probably not a lot of, we're not a lake community where there's a bunch of small lots, but I wanted to put them in here just in case there was something that would come up that would allow that. The second part of that is basically if there's only a structure on one side and it's within 75 feet of the high water mark and within 250 feet of the proposed residence, then you could average it between the 75 feet and the actual the house itself. And again, you can never be any closer than 35 feet to the ordinary high water mark. There's you can't use attached decks, patios, et cetera, to do the averaging. It has to be the principal building. And you can also, if you're going to install a deck or patio, et cetera, on your property, you can use the principal structures adjacent to do that. Again, those are going to be few and far between, but I wanted to have something in there that allows it. Finally, the letter D, vegetative removal. Last time around, it basically just had, basically just allowed you to do a access and viewing corridor between the vegetation within 35 feet. What it says now is, I fleshed it out a little bit more to be more in line with the counties. You can do routine vegetation within that 35 feet. Maintenance of vegetation, you can eliminate up to 35% of the vegetation on your property for the corridor. If you would manage exotic species or remove vegetative vegetation in the remaining 75%, you'd have to replace that as soon as practicable within the same area. And then any vegetative removal would be subject to erosion control through the Waukesha County Shoreland and Erosion Control Ordinance, and then any underlying Village of Vernon zoning district or zoning district overlay requirements. So that's it. That's all I made for changes for this ordinance itself. So I added some exceptions for structures closer to the water and then fleshed out the vegetative removal standards as well. Again, this is a little more simplified from the county, but it gets to the gist of what their ordinance does. As I mentioned last time, we're not required to provide exceptions as a village. The county is required to do some things. We're not required to provide exceptions, and we're also not required to do the vegetative removal stuff. We could allow people to cut as much as they want down to the shoreline as a village or a city, but I figured it was important to include some standards, in a simple manner. The county standards for vegetative removal are much more complicated, and so I wanted to keep them simple. Thoughts on that?
I'm not sure I'm in agreement with the principal building on one side.
Okay.
Average that, if we have an existing building that's 50 feet off the water and you want to build next door, you could average between the 50 and the 75.
That's what it says, yeah.
Right. So you get 60 feet.
I kind of agree with you.
New structure, and that building could be 250 feet away, right?
Which building?
Existing one.
If the existing building's 250 feet away, you don't use it. You only use it if it's within 75 feet of the water.
No, under your, friend II, the existing principal structure is located within 250 feet.
Next to you, yeah, next to
Of
you.
the proposed principal structure and the closest structure.
Uh-huh.
Well, that's quite a ways away. Why not make them comply the 75 feet at that point in time? That's probably it could be an old building that's ready to come down.
Yeah,
So you're saying 250 feet is kind of far, could it?
That's a long ways away.
Yeah, what's our minimum depth,
with flowers?
150, right?
Well, for our R1 lots, yeah.
You know, if you have an old structure here that's not worth much and it's at 50 feet and you want to build a new one, could be 250 feet away,
Mm-hmm.
why should you average that? This one should be set back in compliance with 75 feet.
Yeah, I don't know if I feel strongly one way or the other about this. I feel more strongly about when there's two structures
Right.
and you're kind of averaging between those two, but I think there's some merit to what you're saying is that,
Although if both structures need to be torn down, why would we?
well,
That
know,
again,
yeah,
I mean, to your point, Dan, I mean, a lot of these, well, we don't have the lakes like you said, Sean.
Right.
I mean, the lake communities that were built in
Yeah.
the 20s and 30s, those houses are
Right.
being all raised,
this is,
torn down and mansions built,
this is gonna rarely come into play for Vernon, if at all.
if at all, right?
I would be fine with what you're saying to eliminate
Well,
two,
would we just strike it, or we'd say the 250's gotta be more like 100 feet or 150?
I would strike it.
just the one where it's on one side.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that.
What do other people think? These are exceptions. We don't have to provide
Right,
exceptions.
you don't have to provide them.
And yeah, again, we don't have.
Yeah, we don't have we have the Fox River, and that's a different issue with wetlands.
And it's the high water mark dictates,
Okay. Again, we're not making decisions tonight, we're just bringing it forward for public hearing for next month. We're not taking any action, except to set the public hearing date potentially.
Potentially, right. Right, and we're not deciding on this ordinance until after the public hearing and listening to the public input. You know, we may have changes after the public hearing.
Right, that's right. Okay, I have that change. What about the vegetative removal? Does that sound basic
Mhm.
enough?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Reading the counties is almost indecipherable, both on the, both on the averaging. This is much better.
yeah, I like that control too, because it's, even if you don't have flowage problems, there's a definite influence on the water with, vegetation too close to the water, you know.
Is that in compliance with the state or DNR?
Is what in compliance?
Vegetative removal 1B?
Yes, that's the standard. That's, we can allow them to do as much as we want as a village. We can remove this whole requirement and let them clear cut whatever they want, as long as it complies with erosion control standards that the county
I
has.
thought DNR's was 30 feet per 100 feet of width.
No, there's no actual, this is, the 35% is what the county uses, and so I figured we just match that. But as a village, we're not required to have any standard.
too.
There's some leeway, but you gotta replace it. And so if someone were to do clear cutting out there and we never saw it, nobody would know about it. They'd get in trouble from the county for erosion control, most likely. And then if we caught it, we would say, hey, it didn't comply with the ordinances, and we could make them replant if we wanted to.
Well, 35% is quite a bit.
Would you rather have it 30%? I mean, if you want to reduce that, we certainly can. I mean, we have full control here.
Pretty restrictive. What about violations of this?
It's a zoning ordinance violation.
2,000 a day. For the town, for the village board. All fines and everything would come through the zoning ordinance.
Right. Should we move on?
Good, everybody good?
All right, the other one is the shoreline wetland zoning ordinance. This is a standalone zoning ordinance. It's going to be in our code of ordinances that, as I mentioned before, the DNR prefers this to be a standalone document. Doesn't necessarily have to be. We could have incorporated it as another district in the zoning code, but they like it to be separate and intact. What did I change on this? Oh, the only thing we changed on this one is on page. Sorry, bear with me. It's relating to conditional uses. Yeah, on page 12. 5.4 conditional use permits. So there's in this basically all this thing regulates is our DNR designated wetlands within the 300-foot, 1,000-foot setback and what you can and can't do within the wetlands. And so there's certain permitted uses you can do without a permit, certain permitted uses you can do with the permit. There's a section on conditional use permits and the application process and everything in here. But as of now, we've added language that said there are no uses listed as conditional uses in this ordinance. So I can't think of any right now. We may at some point in the future think, hey, but we wanted to be clear. And so before it was silent on it, we wanted to explicitly be clear that there's no conditional uses here. So that doesn't get us into trouble with, with anything but not having substantial regulations or enough conditions to protect ourselves. And so we made it very simple. Dan, I think you had the question last time about grazing of animals. In maybe it was the other district, the shoreline overlay district or whatever it was, but yeah, close to the water. And I took a quick look at that. And so so the shoreline zoning ordinance just sits on top of our other districts, right? So if grazing is allowed, it's an ag district, you can have animals. You can go as far as the water's edge per the shoreline overlay district. This one only talks about wetlands, but if you look at the actual permitted uses in the wetlands themselves even, grazing of animals is allowed, even in the wetlands, pasturing animals. So if you can do it in the wetlands within 300 feet of a lake or a river or stream or 1,000 foot of a lake, then you certainly can do it anywhere else in that 300,000 foot buffer. And so this is based on the model ordinance from the DNR. So it's clearly allowed as something that can happen.
This is going to be a standalone ordinance,
That's right.
so we've got enforcement and penalties in here. Is that being?
Yeah, it's still administered by the zoning administrator, which is me, and then obviously.
What about these fees though here?
Yeah, let's take a look at those.
Forfeiture, not less than $100, no more than $1,000.
Does it say 1,000? What page are you on?
Yeah, it says no more than
16.
1,000.
Established by the village board on their schedule.
I think our zoning ordinance specifically says a minimum 100 and maximum 2,000.
Our regular zoning?
Yeah. So we could mirror that.
Yeah, it should be mirrored.
It does this, I know it overlays, Sean, but is there any conflict with our existing ordinance as this overlays over it?
Well, this only regulates the wetlands.
Right,
So,
but I know it goes over our regular zoning.
right, and so whatever zoning, yeah, it does. But whatever's more restrictive prevails.
Okay.
I mean, that happens, any ordinance you have, the more restrictive always prevails.
It's
so I'll make a note about the fees.
Between 100 and 1,000, but that, could be on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's per day, so it's, they should be the same, I'll make them the same.
Yeah, look at 300.
Each day of continued violation shall constitute a separate offense, so that's right.
Look at 300-48, John. Maybe you're looking at it.
I'm not, no. Is that, and, yeah, but I can mirror that.
This says not less than $10. I don't know where that came from, but put that.
You just missed a zero. Like an AM, PM, you know.
So our ordinance currently says $10?
It says not less than 10.
Well,
But we're looking at our ordinances, John.
That's not a typo, huh?
I think it's a
I
typo.
think
Well-
it is.
Not to exceed the sum of 2,000 for each offense. For each offense.
yeah, so the question is, I can change this language to say, subject to fees established by the board, but we don't have anything in place for this.
But and Carl, you just read what's in our existing zoning code.
Right.
Let's make it 100 to 2,000 and
Yeah.
assume
Yeah,
that that's,
just-
that's an
yeah.
error.
Yeah, right.
That's a typo.
No one ever gets fined for the 10 though. It's always,
Well,
it's always the 2,000.
The board just approved 2,000 a day unless it was on the schedule. So if it wasn't on the schedule, it's $2,000.
2,000 a day, right. So, okay, that makes sense. So the last thing we have to talk about are the maps, and this should not take very long. So
Page.
it's a set of maps that, do they have a set of maps? Yeah, the color maps, and just very quickly, there's I don't know, there's 7 or 8 properties in the village of Vernon where the village zoning district is different for the county shoreline ordinance district for the same property. So there's split zoning between the two. So the county was kind enough to go through and let us know which ones those were. So when we adopt our shoreline zoning maps as part of this, we're gonna be rezoning portions of these properties to make it uniform zoning. So there's no properties anymore with split zoning on them, right? And so starting on the first page, it's VNT 2030998. Okay, you guys see that one? That's the Pheasant Run, some of the Pheasant Run property. Yeah, it's mostly zoned R1, which is the yellow, but the little bit of red in back is RRD5 under the county shoreline ordinance. So we didn't bother rezoning that when they were doing the development because it kind of fell outside any of the lots and it was in the open space, it didn't matter. So I'm recommending we just rezone the whole thing to R1. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, next page, more of the same property just to the east. You can see a little bit of that still bleeding over. So that would be rezoned from RRD5 to R1 there.
Right, and the piece that we're rezoning, Sean, that's not going to be ever built on under.
No, it's in common open
It's under-
space
or-
anyways,
yeah,
right? It doesn't matter, but I didn't want to adopt maps with split zoning on them.
Okay.
Then keep going. Then we have VNT 2079992. This is the property that's sort of landlocked north of I-43 between Oakdale. This is between Oakdale and High-Low Road. It's a landlocked property, but it's zoned RRD5 in the village, and you can see sort of the part that's not shaded is zoned A5 in the county within that bubble, so we would just be changing that to be RRD5. The same with the property just to the south of it. So you can see on that same map, I don't have it highlighted here, but that A5 bleeds onto the property south.
998, that one?
Yeah, the 998. That would also be, that little bit of A5 would be rezoned to RRD5. That map is in here too. It happened to be at the very end, but it's
Oh,
also in
it's
here.
coming.
It's coming. Yep,
Oh, yeah, I see it, it's at the end.
it's at the end. But again, that's the idea. And I'm not sure how that got left over, because if you look to the west there, the sort of the red in the bubble, that is our RD5 in the county, so I don't know why there's some zoned A5. Any rate, these are very easy. There's not much controversy here in terms of what they should be. Okay, the next one is VNT 2098985, the one that shows mostly A5. You see that, Southside Edgewood between Oakdale and Hilo. Most of it is A5, but again, at the very back of the property is some RRD5, similar to the Pheasant Run properties. So that'll be rezoned to A5. Keep moving. This property is just north of the Fox River, west of Center Drive. This property is owned by the county, by the Parks and Land Use. And so we have it zoned as A5. They're asking us to zone it to P1 if possible.
What's P1?
Parks, public, area park, yeah, public, yeah. So they own it, they intended to use it for public purposes.
That's right across from River Road, right, or River Lane, is that what that is?
And our land use plan has it as recreational. So there's no problem.
Would that
There's no
zoning
problem.
be consistent with
Yes.
recreational? Yes.
Yes.
I would think that'd be okay.
Yeah, that's totally consistent, yeah, for public use, yeah. Okay, same thing with the next property, same issue, but this one is north of the Fox River, just east of I-43, also owned by the county.
This is a county piece too?
It is.
Parks, yeah.
You can see they have it zoned P1,
Yeah, they do.
and they're asking we also rezone this one to P1. On our land use map, this property is essentially all within the environmental corridor, so that would be no issue either.
Should be no issue.
And then finally, the last map is, well, not the last, the second to last. VNT 2151045. This is a sort of looks like a landlocked parcel between two subdivisions. It's between the Hunter's Run and Creekside Estate subdivisions. There actually is a little bit of Vernon-owned right-of-way that gets back to it, this little zigzag. I'm not sure, yeah. Very strange, but it does have access. The property is almost entirely zoned A3 within the green is the high groundwater overlay, but the little bit of a non-shaded bubble is zoned A3 in the county, and we have it zoned A2. So we would just make it consistent and rezone it to A2 to match the properties to the west. We have our little bit zoned as
Who owns that piece of
A2,
property?
yeah.
Who owns that piece of property?
I don't know about that. Well, you can see this bleeds into it as A2, right? That's A2. And so we would just zone the whole thing A2.
What is it zone now, A3?
A2 and A3. A2 in the village, A3 in the county. With a big high groundwater overlay over the whole thing. So it's unusable. It's unusable, and so I'm just saying because the nearest zoning district is A2, let's just zone it A2 for now, that little bubble that's in there for consistency. And then the last page is really just that other page from the previous one. And so that's it. These are the only properties that have split zoning between the village and the county. And so when we adopt our maps, these are the changes we'd be making along with it.
Those landowners get special notice and everything? We could notice them specifically, or we could just say that we're adopting shoreline and we're making some changes to, and just list the properties as part of the, I don't know, what do you think? We might ask Attorney Macy the question. And
I
see
mean,
what he
my
says.
personal opinion, I think you
should.
should notify those people,
Well, that's why I'm asking whether it's legally required. If it's legally required, absolutely, even if it isn't though.
It
Well,
is done in the
we're
notice.
essentially adopting shoreline zoning for tons and
Everybody.
tons of properties. We're not gonna notice every single property that
Right.
all of a sudden you're changing from county shoreline to village zoning. We're just gonna put a notice in the paper that says, hey, we're adopting shoreline zoning maps
That's for the whole village.
for the whole
These are
village,
specific
right.
Yeah,
Properties.
and those we could that wouldn't be much.
We could
That wouldn't be
notify
very
these
much to
seven.
notify those.
No, just to let them know,
Yeah.
yeah.
Sure, if that's,
That'd be easy to do.
that would be, err on the side of caution.
Yeah, when we're changing the zoning. Adopting one ordinance is one thing, but changing zoning, you know, not that it's gonna matter, but it matters. Right.
Yeah, and two of those properties
Courteous
are
if
the
nothing
county.
else. I mean,
So the idea is that to bring this forward for a public hearing, next month. I'm hoping to have a zoning map from the county that shows, our zoning map currently has, right behind you, Jamie, has a bunch of white bubbles that are around the lakes and rivers, and so that will be filled in with colors next time around. It'll all be village. It'll still have the buffers around them to designate the 300,000 feet, but all those colors will be filled in with these minor tweaks that we just made tonight, and that's the plan. There may be a chance that the county is not able to finish that map in time, in which case I don't think it's a big deal, but we're gonna try to make it happen because we're simply. It would be in time for the meeting, which would be next month.
Yeah, if we can pull it off. How many people, Sean, in your experience, come to these meetings? You know, do we get to school? Do we go to the overflow here? Or if there's just too many people, do we just postpone it and then try to get to school, even if the school is even available?
I couldn't, every community is different, so I'm not sure what the interest is gonna be for Vernon.
But how large? What is the largest you've seen and the smallest?
I've never personally been involved in implementing shoreline zoning, so I don't know. No, not yet. Going through the same process.
We could have it here.
Have it here, and if it's
Have
too,
the DPW available and then have people come in and speak. At least they could listen and hear on TV, and if they wanted to speak, they could, you know, we can have some people in here,
right.
you know. But we can't have walls.
Ultimately, it doesn't impact anybody's property very significantly. It just
We're replacing, everybody's property is
already in shoreline.
already in shoreline.
Right. We're just,
Subject to
We're
those
just a
rules.
village now, and
We're picking those rules up and making them our own. And in some respects, making them a little more.
a little more simple.
Bring 'em up
Right.
to date, yep.
So,
So it doesn't really change anything in terms of how people can use their properties.
right.
right.
It makes it better because there are little places in the ordinances where, say, our A2 and their A2 is, I'm just using that as an example, but are slightly different, right? There are some
Yeah.
slightly different things, or they have different regulations for accessory buildings in shoreline zoning than, say, we do, and so there are slight differences, but it doesn't matter because we already have rules for zoning, and those are gonna apply village-wide.
So how are we running the public hearing? Are you,
I'm gonna give just an
you give a
overview.
broad, and then we'll just take public comments?
Yeah, of what it is, why we're doing it, what it includes, and what the implications are, and take comments.
Is there anything, that could be done before the public hearing, like a public informational where they can come one-on-one and then hold the public hearing? I'm just throwing it out, because sometimes it helps having,
Well, it's gonna be informal, right? Carl's gonna turn it over to me, I'm gonna say what it is, and people, anybody has a chance to
Yeah,
talk and
that's true.
go back and forth. I mean, we're a pretty easy group, so.
Right, and I suppose if there's so many people, we can always, it's just like the.
If we have to
cell
adjourn
tower,
it,
We adjourn it after 2 hours and say
That's
we're
right.
gonna adjourn it to another date and time.
right.
When does the spring newsletter go out?
this will happen before the newsletter. Newsletter is probably gonna go out the end of April, beginning of May.
So you're thinking, Dan, you put it in the spring, and we have this public hearing not in April, but in June or something.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
There's no
Any
rush?
feeling on your reaction?
Well, there is a rush, right? I mean, we are expected to have this done. DNR they expected us to have it within 6 months of incorporating, and so,
We found that out in 5 months.
Put out some type of a notice or newsletter or.
like I said, this is my first time I've been a part of,
You can check with DNR and see what their recommendation is.
they just want you to adopt shoreline zoning. It's up to us how much involvement we want to do. I don't think it's gonna be a big draw.
I don't think so
but if you wanna bolster advertising, I mean, is there a mailing list that you have for people that are normally interested in these types of things?
No, people can subscribe to having agendas and public notices sent to them. We have that service on our,
So there's already people that automatically get every
Yes,
agenda and
yep.
so on that comes forward.
yeah.
I mean, you certainly can do what you wanted. And if you want to push the hearing off another month until May to accommodate that, we can do that. I'm not sure the DNR is going to care too much. They know we're working on it. They know it's coming. They know we're administering the county's ordinance now in place. So if that's what you wanted to do, you know, I'm sure, because Waukesha is a month behind us. So Waukesha is probably not going to have a public hearing till May anyways. So if you wanted to wait till May, we could do that. That way we know, well, one thing, we know that we'd have the county map for sure. And then if you have a newsletter and you want to put in the newsletter, you could do that.
Karen, we talked the newsletter was article deadline soon, like 10 days from now.
Yeah,
And then we were gonna push it, put the election results in and then mail it out.
right.
So April 10th.
Well,
So that gives a lead time on it. That gives you
Well, we
a
still
month.
have to
That
do
gives
our
you a whole
legal
month.
notices.
But that gives you a whole month, yeah.
Put it up on our Facebook and websites. I can push it out. Karen can push it out to the email list.
So were you looking at May 11th?
But that would,
Yeah, that would be the
when
date.
would the newsletter arrive and people before May 11th? We're talking to
Well,
get it in
depends. If
Yeah.
the village board passes that newsletter on their first meeting,
April.
April 1st,
Yeah.
because you can't wait for the new village board because they don't come into play until May.
No, late April.
Well-
Yeah,
19th
but
or something
all
like
the
that.
meetings would be done by then. All the village board meetings?
Right, we couldn't wait for the new board.
Right.
Well, we could, just thinking here. Village board on its April 1st meeting approves the newsletter, subject to final election
Yeah.
results on the 6th.
Oh,
or
yeah,
something,
yeah.
You know, with direction to put in the election results,
Right,
and then to the printer.
yeah. That would work.
It'll be by the end of April, and then everybody will get 2 weeks' notice. You give people too long a notice, they'll forget about it, too
Right.
short, that, oh, you didn't tell me in time.
That notice is good. I mean,
Yeah.
Every public hearing
And
is.
I'll do the statutory legal notice
Of course,
also.
yeah, and the website and
Right,
Facebook and
yep.
all of that too.
So you would need to recommend to the board then,
Set the public hearing date, set a public hearing date of May 12th. Is that right?
Yeah. Second Wednesday of the month.
And we'll start here, and if
Yeah,
we need to adjourn it to a bigger forum,
you can,
maybe we can do it because the school will be out for the summer. Then
you can really hear though, in the garage with the new sound system and the TV. It's really loud.
Won't be winter anymore.
Yeah, we can open the doors and a little bit.
And the
When is
mosquitoes.
that? May 12th? Oh, yeah.
Wednesday, May 12th.
I gotta be careful here. Yeah, May 12th would be okay for me. The May 6th meeting that I'm personally worried about for me.
Do we have minutes to approve?
So first, we'll get I'll make a motion to recommend to the village board to set a public hearing date of May 12 and to give notice to amend the Village of Vernon zoning map to include shoreline zoning, to create a Village of Vernon shoreline zoning overlay district with chapter 300, and to create a Village of Vernon shoreline wetland zoning ordinance.
Yep, I got it. I'm just waiting for a second.
Is there a second? Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of minutes, village, says village board, but it means village place.
Does it say village board?
Yeah,
Oh, God.
village
Plan
plan
commission.
commission, sorry about that, minutes of February 10, 2021. Yeah, it was a typo in the agenda.
I I so move to accept.
Move to approve.
Second?
Move to approve. Second. Any discussion on these minutes, changes? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Take a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Third.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned, gentlemen. Thank you. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Karen. 10:35, 6.